Chapter 433. The threads of the net were extremely sticky. It would be very difficult to escape. The top of Fong Yan's head was covered by a giant net, and his feet were the pits they had set up. It was extremely dangerous to go up or down. The front, back, left, and right paths were all difficult for him to quickly escape the encirclement. Countless men in black were rushing in this direction. Only death awaited Fong Yan. This was the most dangerous moment for Fong Yan. The more dangerous it was, the more he had to stay calm, because any moment of carelessness could cost him his life. The heart of Tai Chi spun rapidly, and the Tai Chi domain fully unfolded. The entire world suddenly became quiet. The wind stopped blowing, the snow stopped falling, and those people stopped moving. The originally transparent net turned into red lines, which were clearly visible in Fong Yan's mind. The densely packed horizontal and vertical lines intersected, extending infinitely outwards. It seemed that there was no boundary. Flames flickered on the red lines. It turned out to be an electric net. When it completely enveloped Fong Yan's body, the electricity that erupted in an instant could stun or even kill him. The Tai Chi domain was a divine domain. Mountains, rivers, cattle, sheep, people, and even flowers and grass were all under the control of gods. In the Tai Chi domain, Fong Yan was the true king of God. He was faster than the net, and his killing moves were fiercer and fiercer than those of the men in black. Fong Yan raised his speed to the limit and pounced on the group of men in black like a tiger pouncing on sheep. Whoosh! He grabbed the neck of a man in black, who was still in a charging posture. He could see the shock and disbelief on the man's face. The man in black didn't understand. There was clearly some distance between them, and he had already calculated the time to make contact. Why did he grab his neck in an instant? Crack! Fong Yan directly twisted his neck. When a man in black lost gravity and slowly collapsed to the ground, Fong Yan had already rushed to the second, third, and even more men in black. Crack! 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 The sound of beans exploding rang out incessantly. The sounds merged together to form a single sound. If someone's eyes could keep up with Fong Yan's speed, then they would be surprised to see this extremely strange scene. A group of black-clothed men stood still in various charging positions, and Fong Yan was like the Grim Reaper harvesting lives in front of them. Every time there was a crisp sound, a life was lost. The sound stopped, and Fong Yan's figure disappeared. Pitter-patter. The men in black fell one after another. Schwa. The electric net that gave off the feeling of falling rapidly descended slowly, covering the man in black lying on the ground. Then, it let out a crackling sound. Bang, bang, bang. The men in black who had fallen to the ground were struck by a strong electric current. Even though they were no longer breathing, their bodies were still bounced up and down by the electric current, as if they were performing a zombie dance. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Their falling or bouncing bodies triggered the installed mechanisms on the ground. One by one, the mechanical feet bounced open, making a painful sound. Fong Yan stood outside the net. The prey had become the hunter now, and he coldly watched everything that was happening in front of him. Those people, they deserved to die. A middle-aged man in blue walked out. He was not tall, but he had a clear temperament. His temples were slightly protruding, and he seemed to have a reserved aura. He did not even look at his companions in black in the deep pit, but only looked at Fong Yan with a burning gaze. He said, "I know those people can't stop you. How can a true master be defeated by a broken net and a few feet? High tech. Sometimes technology is also very powerless. What you just showed, was it the legendary heart of Tai Chi? The feeling of stopping time. It's really enviable." Fong Yan did not respond to the man in blue's question. Instead, he took the initiative to rush toward him. He had lost contact with his father, and every second he wasted was a second of time to save him. He just wanted to finish the battle as soon as possible, no matter who was standing in front of him. Words had no power, and a battle of strength was the only battlefield. "You can call me." As the man spoke, he had already thrown out 13 punches. His green robe suddenly swelled up by the force of chi. Because it couldn't bear the burden, it was pulled into pieces and floated in the air. Fist King Jin Haidong. Since ancient times, Huaxiao martial arts had the saying of Southern Fist and Northern Kick. Jin Haidong, the Fist King of Southern Fist, became famous more than 20 years ago. His pair of thunderclap fists had the power of the Yangtze River, and it could decisively break through the opponent's defense. Even the imperial advisor, Li Zhongwu, said that his hard body skills were invincible. Fang Yin did not expect that he would actually run into such a difficult opponent at this time and place. However, whether it was the Fist King or the Cannon King, whether it was invincible in hard body skills or the best in soft body skills, Fang Yin wanted to take them down. Because he was hateful. Anyone who stopped him from saving his father was extremely hateful. It was a life and death feud. Jin Haidong's 13 punches turned into 13 cyclones, one cyclone after another. The second cyclone merged with the first cyclone, and the third cyclone merged with the first two cyclones. Finally, the 13 cyclones merged into one, turning into a huge rotating storm. Whoosh! It was like the most violent hurricane sweeping toward Fang Yin. It was a fierce stance that wanted to swallow him up in the storm and tear him into pieces. This was the storm fist that Jin Haidong was best at. He had watched from the side how Fang Yin killed more than a dozen men in black in an instant at that critical moment, so he did not dare to slight Fang Yin in the slightest. The best way to respect an opponent was to use one's most powerful move to kill him. The golden thread snake's body exploded, and the black-robed man and the current Snake King lost a tool to fight in the middle. The current Snake King was drenched in sweat, and his body was also smeared with his own blood. But the black-robed man was very calm, as if he had done something insignificant. The black-robed man looked at his disciple and said, "The golden thread snake shouldn't have died. It was a snake slave that you raised. Both emotionally and physically it was closer to you. When you saw it being controlled by me, you became anxious and wanted to take back control. Your soul rush area was too hasty, and the more hasty it was, the more it would stimulate the snake's bestial nature, causing it to lose its ability to judge. It lost its ability to judge and began to approach me. Caught between a rock and a hard place, its blood stagnated and it exploded and died. The current Snake King was ashamed and said, 'Thank you, Shifu. Your disciple has learned much. That's already very good.' The black-robed man chuckled. 'I left without saying goodbye. You were still young at the time. After all these years of bitter training and living with hundreds of insects, it's already very good that you could achieve such results. You are talented and lonely. This was the key to your success. Thank you, Shifu.' The black-robed man waved his hand and said, 'I am your Shifu, and also your opponent. With the golden thread snake dead, there is no longer anything between us.' 'What a pity.' Shifu, the current Snake King, called out. The black-robed man's black robe silently fluttered and drifted towards the current Snake King. Every time he shook his black robe, wisps of white smoke drifted out of it. The white smoke moved with the wind, enveloping the current Snake King. Wandering powder. No matter if it was a venomous snake or a ferocious beast, they would die upon contact. Humans would not be spared either. Snake breeders would have countless strange poisons on their bodies. The current Snake King didn't dare to be careless. His small body turned into a sharp arrow, avoiding the white smoke's range of attack, then leapt up and attacked the black-robed man's upper body. The black-robed man's black robe instantly spread out and covered the current Snake King's body. And so, the two snake apostles disappeared into the black robe. The black robe shape was constantly changing, sometimes round, sometimes square, sometimes vertical, sometimes jumping. Bam! A figure was thrown out from the black robe, screaming and rolling on the ground. The current Snake King's body was drenched in blood. His head and face were covered in reddish-brown ants. The current Snake King desperately swatted at those ants, but the ants' grip was extremely strong, and their teeth were hooked, each bite deeply piercing into flesh. The current Snake King could only reach out and grab those ants from his face one by one, squeezing them until they exploded. Every time he grabbed an ant, it was the same as ripping off a piece of flesh from his face. When he was done, there wasn't much skin left on his face. A large amount of skin was torn off, and blood began to flow from the missing parts. The current Snake King's entire face was covered in blood, his flesh becoming indistinct. Whoosh! The black robe unfurled, revealing the black-robed man's ugly face once again. He looked at his disciple lying in the snow with pity in his eyes, saying, "You should have died already, but I couldn't do it. Is it because of that man's influence?" He looked into the distance, where Fong Yixing's body was lying motionlessly, covered by the wind and snow. Home is family, and having someone waiting for you is home. That man had said this before. He had wandered around his entire life, and everyone avoided him like they were snakes or scorpions. However, there was a time in the depths of his memory where there were two thin black shadows waiting for him at the entrance of his courtyard every time he returned. Perhaps that was his family? That feeling of being waited for. Was that the feeling of happiness? The feeling of being alive? It was precisely because they had experienced such happiness that both Fong Yixing and Wang Dong were brave and fearless, even willing to fight with their lives. This was because they cared too much about their lives and the opportunity to live, so they weren't afraid of death. Because they didn't want to die, they weren't afraid of death. It was very contradictory, but at this moment, the black-robed man felt that he had understood. Chapter 434. Fong Yin had seen the person with the most majestic spear momentum was Mo Qingdi, and the person with the most dangerous sword momentum was Qin Yebing. Today, he saw the person with the most explosive fist momentum. Every weapon, when used to the extreme, could unleash equally great lethality. For example, a pistol and a cannon. Of course, this was just a saying. This saying was only limited to cold weapons. For example, in Gulong's novel, was Xiaoli Fei Dao's knife faster or Shimin Shui Shui's sword faster? This kind of question would definitely make people scratch their heads. Boom! The storm fist lived up to its name. It was shaped like a hurricane with faint thunder. The fist wind sucked into surrounding cold air and snowflakes, forming a layer of frost around the huge arc-shaped wind formation. As fast as lightning, it swept towards Fong Yin with an unstoppable momentum. Fong Yin didn't even have time to make a move to neutralize it before he was sent flying by the hurricane. Fong Yin's body soared into the air and flew backwards. Bang! His feet landed on the ground. The hurricane hadn't completely dissipated, pushing him backwards. Chi! The soles of Fong Yan's leather shoes stepped on the ice and snow, deeply embedded into the road. The soles of his shoes rubbed against the road, making a sizzling sound. Fong Yin used Thousand Caddy Fall to stop his backward momentum, and then he regained his footing. The soles of his feet were burning with pain, but a wave of ice-cold sensation invaded the place where the pain was. Only then did Fong Yin realize that the soles of his shoes had been completely worn through, and his feet were standing on the gravel road. Seeing that Fong Yin hadn't been knocked down, Jin Donghai didn't panic. Instead, he laughed and shouted, "Awesome! In 20 years, you're the only young man who could take my storm fist. Take another punch." As Jin Donghai spoke, his body once again clenched into a fist and rushed towards Fong Yin. His right hand clenched into a fist and directly smashed towards Fong Yin. His right arm suddenly became much thicker, and his exposed fist was crimson red. The buttons on his sleeves burst open, and his fist made a hissing sound, as if it was about to ignite. This was the leaving fire fist, a domineering punch. If one were to say that the storm fist had a soft and moist side, then the leaving fire fist would be the representation of extreme yang. There was no return, and there was no return. His fists were like flames, intending to incinerate all obstacles into ashes. This time, Fong Yin really respected Jin Donghai, the Southern Boxing King, not because of his character, but because of his skills. Fong Yin could understand why a person could practice a fist technique to the peak, because he felt that he was that kind of person. However, to be able to practice two completely opposite fist techniques to the peak, this was not something that could be achieved by talent alone. Respect didn't mean love. Fong Yin spread his legs apart, displaying the drunken crane riding the wind footwork that he learned from the old drunkard. Drunken crane rides the wind, moving as he pleased, ethereal, and formless. It was easy to paralyze the opponent, making it difficult for the opponent to find his real body. Fang Yan's body was slightly bent, his legs swaying, moving left and right like a drunken crane. The closer Jin Donghai got, the more Fang Yan swayed. In the end, Fang Yan's real body disappeared, leaving behind countless afterimages in Jin Donghai's eyes. Since he couldn't see anything, he might as well not see anything. Jin Donghai closed his eyes, using his perception to sense Fang Yan's existence. For a brilliant martial artist, his senses were more reliable than his eyes. Boom, he punched out. He was secretly delighted, feeling the air resistance in front of him increase. It was the realistic feeling of hitting something, not the regret of missing a punch. His steps forward quickened, wanting his burning fist to pierce through Fang Yan's body. He liked the feeling of something burning, because that burning was caused by him. Heroic youths, fighting the heavens and fighting the earth. And he, the Southern Boxing King, Jin Donghai, liked to stifle the legendary miracles. Boom, he punched out. Even the surrounding sky was dyed red by his fist. It didn't feel right. One real and one fake. The front was real and the back was fake. He had clearly touched Fang Yan's real body. So why did his fist miss? Idiot! Fang Yan's cold voice came. His body dodged a step. You fell into my trap. That step just now sounded easy, but it was actually very difficult. First, he used the extremely difficult drunken crane, riding the wind, to confuse Jin Donghai, making it difficult for him to catch the real body. This caused his heart to be weak and his confidence to plummet. Then he used his real body to lure him into punching, and when it was hard to pull back his fist halfway, he suddenly used the brilliant heart of Taiji to increase his speed, leaving the moment before the fist hit the body. These two techniques were extremely rare, and the heart of Taiji was even rarer. It seemed like the world had changed, but in reality, it was only an instant. It was even only a few tenths of a second. His body dodged the fist that had already turned fiery red. Fang Plum Blossom stepped sideways and punched Jin Donghai's back. Puffed! Jin Donghai's charging speed increased again, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body had already turned into a ball of furnace fire to begin with. Fang Yan slapped and forcibly injected his own energy into Jin Donghai's violent body, messing up his chi and blood and intensifying his violence. Naturally, the fire attacked the heart and blood came out. Jin Donghai finally felt the danger. He had never underestimated his opponent. Never. When he saw Fang Yan was able to quickly deal with the men in black who surrounded him at the critical moment when the car was about to fall into the pit, he saw this young man as an opponent on the same level as himself. However, it was only at this moment that he realized that the young man's performance was far better than he had expected. He had always thought that victory should be on his side. Now he was panicking. While he was sick, take his life. Fang Yan's body continued to spin, and like a tornado, he chased after Jin Donghai, and then he slapped Jin Donghai's back again and again. Jin Donghai's energy was hard and yang, and Fang Yan also attacked with a dangerous and fiery energy. The two energies entangled in Jin Donghai's body, and the fire and fire could not merge. Jin Donghai felt that his internal organs were about to melt, and he could only spit out mouthful after mouthful of blood. Jin Donghai was seriously injured, but he still ran with all his might. He knew that if he was one step slower, he would be killed by that vicious guy. Fang Yan's toes touched the ground, and his body leaped high like a rock spreading its wings, and then he punched the back of Jin Donghai's head. Bang! The sound of something exploding could be heard. Fang Yan's body flew away, and he did not have time to look back. Nothing was more important than saving his father, including revenge. Since ancient times, loyalty and righteousness could not be both. To the black-robed man, the choice he had to face was more difficult than loyalty and righteousness. He was the Snake Lord, and also a snake slave. Was he loyal to his master, or was he loyal to his feelings? This was indeed a difficult question. His master was holding on to his snake eye, so if he dared to disobey his master's orders, his master could easily kill him. And his disciple, This was the most profound and unforgettable thing in his memory. The images in his mind were constantly being refreshed, and there was almost nothing worth remembering. However, the image of those two tiny people waiting for him to return while riding on the Dorzill was unforgettable. The black-robed man looked at the current snake lord with pity in his eyes and said, "Since you've already prepared yourself, then show me your best side." A snake lord should not be merciful at all. The current snake lord crawled up from the ground, his face covered in blood. He looked at the black-robed man standing in front of him, then bowed to him and took out a yellowed bamboo flute from his pocket. The bamboo flute let out a long and complicated sound. The strange tone repeated endlessly, making anyone who heard it feel drowsy. Then, something strange happened. The cold wind rose again, and the winter snow rose again. Rustling sounds came from the white snow, and countless animals poked their heads out of the snow. There were rattlesnakes with their tails swaying, scorpions with their entire bodies red, centipedes that seemed to be more than a meter long with countless feet, and countless green toads and star-spotted toads. They moved in groups, advancing with great momentum, and their target was the black-robed man who was standing there alone. 100 poison formation. The black-robed man had a gratified smile on his face and said, "You're even more outstanding than I thought." "Very good, that's my good disciple." The tone of the bamboo flute changed slightly, and the eyes of those awakened poisonous creatures turned blood red, and they began to attack the black-robed man. When the first poisonous snake was about to bite him, the black-robed man resolutely rushed toward the current snake lord. Snakes were flung out one after another, poisonous frogs were crushed, and centipedes were crushed one after another. The black-robed man's hands were flying, and some red or black medicinal foam was being sprayed out. His black robe fluttered, and every time it shook, the poisonous creatures that came close would turn around and flee. Then, under the urging of the music, they would charge forward again. One group fell to the ground, and another group would crawl back up and continue to advance. Under poison formation, living beings do not approach. Once you enter the formation, you will not rest until you die. Whoosh! A strong light shone over. It was a car coming from afar. The car was using high beams, and the light illuminated the battlefield as bright as day. The current snake lord who was playing the bamboo flute and retreating, the black-robed man who was running forward, and the ugly creatures on ground. Clang! The car door was pushed open, and a young man dressed in white stood in the dazzling light. His entire body became tall and handsome, and his eyes shone brightly. The white-robed man coldly stared at the scene in front of him and angrily shouted, "Swallow's Dock is a sacred place, and it's also a place where you vicious clowns can run wild." Chapter 435. All ugly people were afraid of mirrors, and all ugly things were afraid of the light. Under the illumination of the light, the red-eyed, venomous creatures panicked and had nowhere to hide. Their narrow, triangular eyes, their hairy, centipede legs, their hair-raising starry spots, and their protruding poisonous scars were all presented to the world. Because of the third party's intervention, both sides who were in the middle of a fierce battle stopped. The current snake lord stopped blowing the bamboo flute in his mouth. The sound of the flute dissipated, and the venomous creatures lost control and immediately fled in all directions. The black-robed man also stopped attacking and turned to look at the white-robed man standing next to the carriage. "Who are you?" "By show of Swallow Dock," the white-robed man replied. His voice was proud, and so was his expression. It was as if he was the prince of this snowy land, and the previous two snake lords and the reptiles on the ground were simply unsightly compared to him. The black-robed man pondered for a moment, then looked at Bai Xiu and asked, "You want to stop me?" "I won't stop you." Bai Xiu sneered. "I'm just telling you to get out. Don't tarnish the feng shui of Swallow Dock." The black-robed man laughed aloud, his voice hoarse and unpleasant to the ear. "Are the people of Swallow Dock all so condescending and insufferable?" He knew two people from Swallow Dock. One was Fong Yin, and the other was the man in front of him. Fong Yin was very proud, and his pride was in his bones. Bai Xiu was also very proud, and his pride was displayed directly on his face. In comparison, he preferred Fong Yan. Because this is Swallow Dock, and because we have the capital. Do we have the capital? I don't believe it, the black-robed man said. He stuck 2 fingers in his mouth and blew a shrill whistle-like sound. The sound was faint and intermittent, but it traveled very far through the air. The venomous frogs and snakes that had just been driven away began to gather again, and all kinds of noises mixed together and swarmed over. Their eyes turned blood-red again, and they were even more violent and crazy than when they were under the control of the bamboo flute. Their target was Bai Xiu, and they fearlessly charged towards the brightest spot. Screech, 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 gua, 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 sha, sha, sha. These poisonous beasts were neat and orderly. They lined up in rows and charged at Bai Xiu like soldiers lining up. Insignificant skill. Bai Xiu's handsome face was cold, his brows raised, and his voice was like the roar of a dragon and the roar of a tiger. A bunch of vile creatures want to enter the hall. Bai Xiu reached into his robe, and a silvery white light flashed. It was a soft sword tied to a belt. Shwa, blood splattered everywhere. The heads of the snakes, the toads, and the legs of the centipedes were all chopped off. It was as clean as a knife cutting through tofu. Bai Xiu's body was untainted. His clothes were as white as snow, and his sword was like a rainbow. Instead of retreating, he advanced, taking the initiative to charge towards the place where the poisonous creatures were gathered. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Bai Xiu slashed again and again, unleashing 119 strikes in a row. He was like a murderous Azura, a war god from hell. Countless snakes, centipedes, and frogs were chopped into halves by him. Everywhere Bai Xiu passed, there were countless limbs, flesh, and blood flying. Behind him, a path paved with blood and severed limbs was carved out. The white snow was melted by the hot blood, and the ground was dyed red. Wherever the light shone, the blood emitted steam and flowed into an even wider area, outlining mountains and rivers, outlining red flowers and red grass, forming a huge and beautiful map. At first, the poisonous creatures desperately attacked Bai Xiu. After Bai Xiu chopped off batch after batch of poisonous creatures like he was chopping chives with a knife, the blood of their companions burned their bodies, and the corpses of their companions stimulated their eyes. The poisonous creatures finally regained consciousness. They understood fear. They understood escape. They no longer approached, and some of the more clever and timid ones even turned around and crawled away. The black-robed man whistled even harder, but the troops he chased away were still defeated. Some of the creatures with low intelligence tried to attack Bai Xiu again, only to be killed by his sword. Even more poisonous creatures were still fleeing, and soon, the black-robed man had no more soldiers to use. Bai Xiu single-handedly cut through the Snake Lord's army of several hundred soldiers, remaining invincible. Bai Xiu sheathed his sword and stood straight, staring at the black-robed man with disdain, saying, "These are the weakest monsters? If that's all there is to it, then I'll have to make you stay. Swallow Dock isn't a place that anyone can come to, no matter what. I have to warn those who come later." The black-robed man stopped whistling and looked at Bai Xiu. "You're not bad. You're as good as Fong Yan. You do have the right to be proud." Bai Xiu frowned, not liking the black-robed man's words, replying, "He and I are not the same kind of person. If you're not the same kind of person, why are you still helping him?" "I'm not helping him. I'm helping Swallow Dock," Bai Xiu replied. "Anyone from Swallow Dock who saw this would either chase you away or stay behind. Swallow Dock is our Swallow Dock. How could we allow a barbarian to sully it?" "Do you know why I'm called the Snake Lord?" Bai Xiu sneered, saying, "Snake Lord, you really know how to flatter yourselves. You're just a monster who spends all day rolling around with a few poisonous snakes and insects, and you still have the nerve to call yourself a king." After a pause, Bai Xiu looked at the black-robed man's withered eye socket that had been dug out, saying, "You're not a Snake Lord. You can only be called a snake slave, right? You're just a monster who kills for others." The black-robed man's expression became ferocious, saying, "Killing is but a matter of nodding one's head to the ground. To humiliate one to this extent, then let's fight to the death. the snake lord was indeed a snake slave. But to go from a noble snake lord to a slave without freedom and thought was a great humiliation to them. He could say that he was a snake slave, but he hated others calling him a snake slave. Just like how a person could say that they were fat and ugly, but they didn't like others saying that they were fat and ugly. Bai Xiu's words struck the heart, thoroughly enraging the black-robed man. Even the current snake lord's face was flushed, his expression ashamed and resentful, wanting to rush over and fight Bai Xiu several times. He was also a snake slave, even if he and his master had different masters, but this didn't change the fact that he was a snake slave. The black-robed man spread his hands, his black robe fluttering, like a bat about to spread its wings and fly. A dozen or so tiny red snakes the size of a pinky shot out from the black robe, splitting into 4 directions and attacking Bai Xiu. The black robe shook again, and another white snake with a horn on its head jumped onto the ground. Its 2 tiny antennae looked around, then began to move towards Bai Xiu. The speed at which it moved was very slow, as if it was worried that Bai Xiu would stomp it to death. The dozen or so red snakes circled around Bai Xiu like a dozen mice, their speed getting faster and faster, forming an illusory red line. Only when the long-horned white snake saw that Bai Xiu was surrounded by its companions did it move a few steps closer to Bai Xiu, but still refused to approach. Bai Xiu held his sword with one hand, standing in place without moving. The white snake's antennae swayed, its mouth emitting a hurried chirp sound. Whoosh! The red line was cut, and a red snake suddenly leaped up, pouncing towards Bai Xiu's neck from behind. The other dozen or so red snakes leaped up at the same time, flying towards Bai Xiu from all directions. Front, back, left, right, head, calf, crotch, every important part of his body was coveted by a red snake. Pooh! The dozen or so venomous snakes spat out red venom at the same time. The venom spread out, forming a giant poisonous web. These red snakes were known as life snakes, raised by poisonous blood since childhood, and were the life-saving venomous snakes raised by every snake monarch. They didn't grow in size, only venom. As their bodies became redder, the venom became thicker and thicker. When all these little snakes turned red, the venom became the purest form of poison. It could corrode clothes and skin, injure flesh and bones. Bai Xiu's body spun, the long sword in his hand dancing in an airtight dance. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. One by one, the red snakes were cut in half, and the bright red venom sprayed out even more wildly. At the same time, the long-horned white snake also moved. Its body was full of fat, but its speed was incomparably fast. Its crawling posture made it look like a meaty ball charging towards Bai Xiu, chirping as it ran. Boom! The long-horned white snake actually exploded, and the countless white fluids and organs in its body shot towards Bai Xiu. This was an explosive snake. It used its own body to destroy its prey, allowing its master to become the final winner. Explosive snakes could only be used once in their lives, and usually they were fed on food, which resulted in their fat body. This kind of attack was truly impossible to defend against. Whoosh! When Bai Xiu finished his last slash, and the last red snake was cut in half, Bai Xiu's body finally stopped spinning. He frowned as he looked at the piece of flesh on his arm that was rotting at a visible rate. His long sword slashed horizontally, and the rotten flesh was instantly dug out. The rotten flesh fell to the ground, but continued to rot until the bright red flesh turned into a charcoal black. Bai Xiu glanced at his arm, extremely dissatisfied with the black-robed man. He took out a bottle of white powder and poured it on the hole on his arm, then took out a clean handkerchief and carefully bandaged it. He even tied the bandaged handkerchief into the shape of a butterfly. He took off the white robe that had a few holes on it, as he didn't like old or dirty clothes. Right now, he was also a bit dissatisfied with his own body, coldly saying, "Just now, I wanted to keep you here for Swallow Fort, but now I want to keep you here for myself. A hole on my arm, she probably won't like it." Chapter 436. Bai Xiu was a perfectionist. He didn't like things that weren't perfect. For example, a shirt with a small hole in it, a pimple on his face, a fruit tree that only blossomed but didn't bear fruit, a road that didn't have an end. These were all things that were hard for him to accept. He liked to read, and he read a lot of books. But he still felt that he didn't read enough, and that he didn't read enough. So he was still reading more and more books, and reading more and more books. On his way back, he encountered two people fighting, and because of a black-robed man, he had a piece of his flesh cut off. This was very imperfect for him. He needed perfection, and he needed to make his heart feel smooth and his thoughts clear. So, he decided to kill the black-robed man. Baishio held the long sword in his hand and walked towards the black-robed man step by step. He looked very relaxed, as if he was going to kill a chicken or a rabbit. With a leap, he floated up into the air. The long sword in his hand was raised high above his head, and he slashed at the black-robed man's head. Whoosh! The soft sword was infused with chi, and the sword let out a sound like a dragon's roar. The long sword swung, and its momentum was majestic. The black-robed man didn't dare to take it head-on. His black robe shook, and a poisonous white smoke sprayed out to conceal himself. At the same time, he retreated. Baishio held his breath, and his body changed directions in the air, avoiding the attack of the white smoke. Like a rock spreading its wings, he chased after the black-robed man at an even faster speed. Still holding the long sword high, he slashed at the black-robed man's head again. It looked like this guy had obsessive-compulsive disorder. If he said he wanted to slash someone's head, he would do it. He couldn't stab the chest, couldn't chop off an arm, and couldn't stab an eye. He had to split the head in half. The black-robed man was still retreating. The tip of his foot touched the ground, and his body was already flying backward. The black robe fluttered in the wind, like a gliding bat with its wings spread. Whoosh whoosh. The long sword in Baishio's hand swung twice in the air, and after using the force of the sword to adjust his posture, he once again slashed at the black-robed man's head. The first spurt of energy, the second decline, and the third exhaustion. After 3 consecutive strikes, he should have lost his will to fight. However, Baishio was completely unaffected by this kind of common sense. Each sword strike was fiercer than the one before, and each sword strike was drier than the one before, and each sword strike was faster than the one before. The Thousand Leaves Army Sword was a dangerous move. Every strike was tricky and dangerous. Every strike was unexpected. Every strike was like a clap of thunder. Baishio's sword was upright and upright, radiating boundless light. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, nothing strange, and nothing showy. A straight stab or a high slash would increase the pressure on the opponent, making it difficult for them to parry. A heavy sword without a sharp edge, great skill without skill. Baishio's swordsmanship had already reached a higher level, and he could be said to be a master of his generation. His body was like a swimming dragon, and his sword was like a rainbow. He went straight for the black-robed man. The black-robed man couldn't dodge in time. Just as the sword was about to strike his head, the robe on his body suddenly puffed up. Black Robe took the initiative to greet Baishio's longsword, blocking Baishio's line of sight. Hiss! The longsword struck the Black Robe, splitting it in half. The black-robed man used the black robe to use the golden silkworm shedding its carapace. While the black robe was holding Baishio back, he had already pounced on Baishio from the side. He wore a copper claw on his right hand. The surface of the claw was dark blue. It was obvious that it had been soaked in venom for many years. The claw reached for Baishio's back, determined to tear a piece of flesh from his body. Baishio had just split open the black robe. He was at the moment when he had used up all his strength. Whether it was changing his move or turning around, it was extremely difficult. Baishio did not change his move. He still maintained the posture of holding the sword with both hands and slashing down. The black-robed man's speed increased. The copper claw in his hand was already about to touch the flesh on Baishio's neck. A sinister smile appeared on his face. I was also filled with the joy of victory. He knew the power of his ghostly claw. As long as it touched Baishio's skin, his body would rot, and he would die. Closer, a little closer. Life and death were only a thin line away. Baishio's body was falling, and the black-robed man's body was also falling. Plop! Bai Xiu and the black-robed man landed on the snowy ground at the same time. Their shoes made crunching sounds as they stepped on the deep snow. Bai Xiu maintained the posture of holding the sword, his back facing the black-robed man. The black-robed man stood behind Bai Xiu, pain and confusion in his eyes. How could this be? How could this be? He had clearly won. The ghostly claw in his hand was about to tear off a piece of flesh from his neck. As long as his ghostly claw touched his body, he would be able to tear off a piece of flesh from his neck. Then, that piece of flesh would rapidly rot. His flesh, meridians, bones, hair, his entire body would rot into a puddle of mud. Swish! Bai Xiu pulled out the long sword in his hand. He held a long sword in his right hand. He used that sword to split open the black-robed man's black robe. He also held a long sword in his right hand. When the black-robed man lunged at him from behind, he used this long sword to stab through the black-robed man's abdomen. Bai Xiu had two swords, two flexible swords. He purposely showed his back to the black-robed man, pretending that he couldn't turn around or change his moves. He lured the black-robed man to attack him, and then ended the battle in one fell swoop. Whether it was the timing, acting, or ruthlessness, they were all impeccable. Bai Xiu pulled the long sword away. Just as the black-robed man's abdomen was about to spurt blood, Bai Xiu kicked out and sent the black-robed man flying. Bai Xiu didn't like to be stained with blood. Poochie, the black-robed man's body fell to the ground, then slid on the ice until he hit a hard object. Shifu, the current Snake Lord, saw that his master was injured and hurriedly rushed in his direction. The current Snake Lord wanted to help the black-robed man up, but the black-robed man waved his hand to stop him. Master, how are your injuries? The current Snake Lord worriedly looked at the black-robed man and asked, I'll heal you. Do you still remember the first time you were bitten by a snake? The black-robed man looked at his disciple with a gentle smile. That ugly face had a touch of kindness to it, and it actually looked more pleasing to the eye. A person's appearance was born from their heart. If they didn't have any evil thoughts in their heart, a person's appearance would naturally give others a good impression. I remember, the current Snake Lord said. He and his sister followed the black-robed man back. In a run-down courtyard, he saw so many snakes for the first time. There were snakes crawling on the ground, standing on the walls, coiling on the trees, and even the wooden door was covered with snakes. The door didn't have a lock, and this kind of courtyard didn't need a lock. No one dared to walk into a snake's nest. He and his sister were terrified. When they turned around to run, a green-eyed snake fell on his head. He was about to open his mouth to scream, but the green-eyed snake bit his lips. That was the first time he was bitten by a snake. From then on, he formed a lifelong bond with these cute and cold animals. Before I brought you back, I didn't want you to raise snakes with me. I wanted you to stay at my place for one night and send you away the next day. Do you still remember how you reacted after being bitten by a snake? You grabbed the snake and held it in your hand, carefully looking at it. Your eyes looked at it curiously, and it also looked at you curiously. At that time, I knew that you were the same kind of person as us. The black-robed man recounted the past that had already been buried in the river of memories. That's why I kept you here. I taught you how to raise snakes, how to get close to snakes, how to control snakes, and how to fight snakes. You were naturally close to those snakes, and those snakes never rejected you. You performed very well, and in many ways, you were even better than me as a teacher, but he found us and asked me to work for them, to become his snake slave. If I didn't agree, he would kill all of us, including you and your sister. I agreed, dug out my own snake's eye and gave it to him. Turning myself into a mindless killer, the black-robed man chuckled and said, Isn't this what we're good at? These years, I've killed many people and done many evil deeds. I'm tired and annoyed. When will it end? If I kill one, there will be another. If I kill one day, there will be another. As long as I don't die, I will continue to kill, continue to commit evil deeds. Most importantly, I don't know who I will kill next, good or bad, men or women, even the elderly and children. I don't know them, and they don't know me. I've killed so many that I've become numb. Teacher, who is it? Who are they? Who are you, a snake slave? Who came to find you? They also didn't come to find you. The black-robed man spoke with a sorrowful voice. This is the nightmare of us snake lords, a punishment. We have harmed many people, so there will be even more vicious people to punish us. They used your and your sister's lives to force me to work for them. Then when you grew up, they used your sister's life to force you to work for them. As long as our Snake Lord bloodline continues, they will have generations after generations of snake slaves to work for them. We can't resist. We will become their puppets for generations. Teacher, the black-robed man, gestured for his disciple to take off the demonic claw on his hand and dip his finger in the blood of the wound on his abdomen. Then he placed the blood-stained finger on his disciple's forehead and released an S-shaped snake symbol. The black-robed man grabbed his disciple's hand and spoke with a solemn voice. I pass the title of Snake Lord to my disciple Mui, to worship the spirit of the snake god, to love the people of our race. May the heavenly God protect our race, to live and die with dignity, to be free for generations to come. Flesh does not rot. Snake blood boils. There was a record of the Snake Lord in the 100 Lives Classics. Born in Shangxi, the king of snakes. The flame of inheritance is passed on. The old dies and the new rises. At this point, the current Snake Lord was officially crowned. Chapter 4:37. The sky was getting darker and the wind was getting colder and colder. Even the snow that had stopped falling started to flutter again. Fang Yin had never hated winter in Yinjing so much. The car was stuck in the pit. Fang Yin could only run on his feet. The soles of his shoes were already worn out. Only the uppers tied to his ankles were a burden. He had already torn off the 2 rags. Fang Yin stepped on the ice with his bare feet. His bare feet collided with the surface of the ice, making a pop-pop-pa sound. His head was forward and his upper body was slightly bent, maintaining a high-speed charging posture. His face was stiff from the cold wind. His eyes were squinted from the snow. He was burning with anxiety, but his face was cold and calm. This was the most dangerous moment. This was the most important moment. The more dangerous and important it was, the more he couldn't make a single mistake. He ran too fast, like a ghost in the wilderness. Screech! Fang Yan's body came to an abrupt stop. Because he was running too fast, his feet spun a circle on the spot to keep his body straight. In front of him stood a man in black with a black mask. I'm assassin, the man in black said. Fang Yan didn't say anything and rushed toward the man in black. No one could stop him, be it the Fist King or assassin, Yama or God. He had to save his father. He had to save his father. Unless his father died. Unless he died. The flame was passed on. The old died and the new was established. In other words, only when the old Snake King died would a new Snake King be born. The current Snake King naturally understood this. It was because his master had disappeared for many years that the outside world thought he was dead. That was why he was called Snake King. Of course, it was just a coronation among the people. He didn't get the blessing of the previous Snake King. Now, the black-robed man was dipped in God's blood, drew his snake talisman, and personally passed the position of Snake King to his disciple. This ceremony was simple and important. Master, the current Snake King, the only Snake King, grabbed his master's hand and shouted in a sorrowful voice. You'll be fine. Nothing will happen to you. When you're not here, I also learned some medical skills and some voodoo. I can help you heal. You won't die. I can't let you die. He took out a bunch of medicine bottles from his pocket, uncorked them, and poured all the red and white powders onto the wound on his master's abdomen. His black clothes had long since been dyed a brownish red. Blood was flowing out of the wound. The Snake Lord waved his hand and said, I won't die. I just want to put an end to it. Some things should have been settled many years ago. But at that time, I was still afraid, so I couldn't go that far. Master, you don't need to do anything. Whatever you want to do, I will do it for you. You just need to live a safe and peaceful life, the current Snake Lord said anxiously, like a drowning man grabbing onto the last piece of wood that could save his life. For the black-robed man, the current Snake Lord and his sister were his only family in this world. He had no love, no marriage, and didn't know what Taoism was. He had never experienced being waited for. The only people who had waited for him were the 2 little ones he picked up from the outside. So, when those people used their lives to threaten him, he dug out his own snake eye and gave it to them, using his life's worth to trade with them. He didn't have a family. but he longed for one. He didn't understand emotions, but he gave them his most sincere feelings. For the current Snake Lord, wasn't it the same? His sister was kidnapped, and he originally thought that she was her only family in this world. So, he risked his life to kill Fong Yen. After the mission failed, he put down his dignity and personal reputation to negotiate with Fong Yen, begging Fong Yen to give him a chance. He didn't even hesitate to follow his master's old path and become someone else's snake slave. Snake slave, that was such a heavy and humiliating title. He didn't expect that he would eventually encounter such a dilemma. On one side was his master who gave him the snake eye, and on the other side was his master who saved him and taught him how to live. This mission was crueler than ever before. His sister's fate was unknown, and his master was about to leave him. These were the two remaining family members of the current Snake Lord in this world. How could the Snake Lord watch his master die without doing anything? The black-robed man climbed up from the ground with difficulty and said with a smile, "You have your own mission. Your mission is to live and save your sister. If one day you two get married and have a child, give him to a good family to raise. Don't let him follow you to raise snakes. The Snake Lord's bloodline is too cruel." "Master," the black-robed man patted the Snake Lord's shoulder and prepared to leave. Thump! The Snake Lord knelt down. His head hit the ground heavily, and he kowtowed 3 times to the black-robed man. The black-robed man waved his hand and didn't turn around. "Are you leaving?" Bai Xiu stood in front of the black-robed man with his sword and coldly said, "I don't agree." He said he would kill the black-robed man, so he would kill the black-robed man. He must do what he said, even if he only said it to himself in his heart. Perhaps the black-robed man had his own tragic fate, or perhaps he had his own difficulties. But who cared? He ran into Swallow Fort's territory to commit murder and arson. This was a huge crime. He had to make him stay for Swallow Fort. Anyone from Swallow Fort who saw him must think of a way to make him stay. The black-robed man had his own family to protect, while Bai Xiu had his own standpoint to uphold. One in black and one in white, one in the dark and one in the light, they were natural enemies. The black-robed man stopped, looked at the undisguised, killing intent in Bai Xiu's eyes, and said softly, "I'm already a dying man. If you let me go, perhaps it'll be good for everyone. I'll fulfill a wish, and you'll get rid of a problem. For you, a crisis will be averted. For Fong Yen, one less opponent. First of all, your wish is not my wish. Second of all, the crisis you speak of is not a crisis for me. As for whether Fong Yen has one less opponent, that has nothing to do with me. I think he'll be more than happy to kill his enemies himself." Bai Xiu was not moved by the black-robed man. "You can't leave." He was a gentle person on the outside, but stubborn on the inside. Once he made up his mind, he would not change it. Except for the one standing in front of him was his mister. His mister. The black-robed man showed a regretful expression, saying, "Why do you think you can definitely make me stay? Just because you stabbed me with your sword? Do you understand the meaning of the Snake Lord? Have you experienced the true power of the Snake Lord? The youngsters of Swallow Fort are a bit overconfident. Sometimes it's really annoying. Why not try?" Bai Xiu proudly said. Bai Xiu's stab was extremely ruthless, piercing through the black-robed man's abdomen. Even after the Snake Lord poured all of his medicinal powder on the wound, it alleviated the black-robed man's injury. However, this was not enough to completely stop the bleeding. The black-robed man ignored the wound on his abdomen and took the initiative to rush towards Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu also stabbed forward with his sword, aiming for the black-robed man's chest. One was like a ferocious tiger hunting its prey, the other like a butterfly plucking flowers. One was fierce, the other light. Their bodies were about to collide in an instant. What was surprising was that the black-robed man was unarmed and actually used his own flesh and blood to meet Bai Xiu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The long sword in Bai Xiu's hand trembled, producing a dozen or so sword sparks. The tip of the sword was like a snake's head, looking for the most suitable place to attack. The black-robed man punched out, his arm striking towards the long sword in Bai Xiu's hand. Whoosh! The wind from the punch was sharp and domineering. The flexible sword in by Xiu's hand changed from a stab to a slash. He only needed one slash to take away the black-robed man's arm. However, his eyes turned cold, and he once again changed from a slash to a stab. The tip of the long sword once again let out a whooshing sound like a viper's tongue, stabbing towards the black-robed man's chest. It was as if he was purposely letting the black-robed man go. The black-robed man's fist blasted over. The wind from the fist blew by Xiu's long hair that was tied up into a bun. The long sword in by Xiu's hand stabbed into the black-robed man's chest, fresh blood gushing out along the blade. With every step the black-robed man took, that long sword stabbed in a little more. However, the black-robed man did not have the intention of stopping, still pouncing towards Bai Xiu fearlessly, a stance of wanting to fight to the death with Bai Xiu. His body was about to be pierced by the long sword very soon. Once again, another hole was pierced through it. However, Bai Xiu did not let him have his wish. He kicked out, sending the black-robed man who was pouncing towards him flying. A few drops of fresh blood dripped onto Bai Xiu's wrist. A heart-wrenching pain came. The flesh on the back of that hand actually started to turn char-black color. The Snake Lord actually turned his own body into a medicinal storehouse, and that red blood became a murderous poison. If Bai Xiu let him approach just now, most likely Bai Xiu's entire body would be corroded into charcoal because of being stained with his blood. Thud! The black-robed man's body fell heavily to the ground. Crack! Fong Yixing, who had been lying on the ground with half of his body covered in snow, suddenly flipped over, raised the long sword his hand high up, and stabbed it into the chest of the black-robed man who had fallen right next to him. Screech! The black-robed man's chest was stabbed, and his body that had just wanted to sit up weakly drooped down. Fong Yixing laughed heartily, shouting at the top of his lungs, "I said I would slash you. I will slash you. I did it. I did it." He didn't want to kill the enemy. He just wanted to slash his opponent. He did it. He finally did it. Chapter 438. Huaxia's proverb says, "The spear is the king of all weapons, the sword is the king of all weapons, and the rod is the leader of all weapons." The old drunkard was cleaning his spear. It was a silver spear, made of refined steel. The tip of the spear reflected a cold light. The old drunkard was good at using spears, but he rarely used them. The spear was heavy and slender. The spear's momentum was mighty and domineering. Once the momentum of the spear was connected, it would become an impenetrable spear formation. It fit the old drunkard's invincible image very well. However, the old drunkard hadn't used a spear for a long time, including when he crossed the East Ocean and challenged the 37 East Islands. Because he used his strength to the extreme, what he needed to learn now was how to save it. So he started using his sword or his fists. He had kept this phoenix spear for a long time, but after his meridians were destroyed in the battle with the dragon god, he never took it out again. The silver spear was covered in dust in the corner, so he took it out and cleaned it. Ga. The wooden door of the courtyard was pushed open. Fong Hui was sitting in a wheelchair, looking at the old drunkard cleaning his spear in the room, and asked, "Why are you cleaning your spear?" "The killing intent is too strong," the old drunkard said indifferently. When the killing intent is strong, the spear can be used to show its power. Fong Hui sighed softly and said, "Your body hasn't recovered yet. You can't use your strength. Just rest well." Fong Yin went out. Fong Hao went out. Cheng Xian also went out with his people. The heroes and warriors also went out. Fong Yin went out. Fong Hao went out. Zhao Cheng went out. The heroes and warriors also went out. I can also go out. The old drunkard put the dusty handkerchief into his pocket, stood up with the spear in his hand, and as he passed by Fong Hui, he loudly said, "I'm not going out as Huaxia's Azure Dragon. I'm going out as a member of the Fong family. I don't have strength, but I have martial arts. I don't have martial arts, but I have brute force. I kill with blood, cut with knives. That will always be useful." Fong Hui laughed and said, "Then let's go. I'll recite a poem for you." The old drunkard pushed open the back door of the courtyard and quickly disappeared in the snow. The old wooden door creaked as it was blown open and closed by the wind. Fong Hui's voice was hoarse and sorrowful as he recited an ancient poem, 10 years Yin Fong, drinking the Han River. They were both spinning wheels. Regret that we met in the past, 3,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away. The heroic spirits of the universe are tranquil and generous, willing to serve in mere ink and brush. The ambition of a man wants a spear and a sword. Drunk in the autumn wind at the Yuan Gate, watching the setting sun and flags set in red. I love the snow on the edge of the clouds, a cold horn, the smooth sand and fine grass, a few points of flying swan. As Fong Hui chanted, he slapped the handle of the wheelchair with his palm. His eyes passed through the wooden door and the courtyard wall to look into the distance. Fong, but he palm, he Fong, he, but he was of, but he was Yin Fong. And the feelings of the lake and the sea, the friendship of the golden orchids. Don't regret that the jade cup is empty. Of gods. Of. Protect the return of the Fong family's children. Heavenly gods and great immortals, ancestors of the Fong clan, please ensure the return of the Fong clan's youngest daughter. Protect the return of the Fong family's children. Heavenly gods and great immortals, ancestors of the Fong clan, please ensure the return of the Fong clan's youngest daughter. Protect the return of the Fong family's children. Again and again, again and again. Like an old crow cawing, like a cuckoo crying blood. As expected of an assassin. He was very fast. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. The only flaw was that this idiot had chosen the black invisibility cloak for the sake of showing off. Did he not know that on the vast expanse of white snow, black was the most conspicuous color? Fong Yin felt very strange. How did the mastermind find so many experts to attack him? He was just a nobody. Was it worth it? He already understood that this was an ambush aimed at him. Their target was not his father, Fong Yixing. Fong Yixing was just a scholar. To them, he was just a useless person without any influence or combatability. Why would they spend so much effort to kill him? Their target was Fong Yin. They wanted to harm Fong Yixing to lure Fong Yin out, to summon him out of Swallow Dock, and then carry out a killing spree. Their goal was to kill Fong Yin. From the traps they had set up and the experts they had arranged, it could be seen that they would not stop until they achieved their goal. Fong Yin was the victim. He did not have any choice. If he could, he was willing to sacrifice everything, spend billions of his family's wealth, give up his dignity and honor. He was willing to kneel to this black-clothed man and the experts he might face next, as long as they were willing to let him go, as long as they gave him time to save his father. He had a very bad feeling in his heart. He was worried that his father had already died or was in trouble. He hoped that it was the latter. This was the best thing he could imagine at this moment. Fong Yan's eyes were blood red. He looked like a poisonous snake whose mind had been taken away by the fighting snake dance. He was so anxious that his face was red and his eyes were bloodshot. The assassin's attack failed again. The scimitar in his hand drooped down. It looked weak. His eyes that were covered by the black gauze were filled with shock and disbelief. There was actually someone who could avoid his cross slash? 1 slash, 10 slashes, 10 slashes. 10 slashes were unleashed in an instant. It sealed off all the routes of attack or retreat. How did he avoid it? He panted lightly. He used a special method to quickly adjust his breathing so that his body was in the best state. After every charge, there would be a period of emptiness. He needed to use his strength and fighting spirit to fill up this period of emptiness. Otherwise, it would give the opponent an opportunity to take advantage of him. The assassin rushed out again. He raised the scimitar in his hand high. His body made gaudy and complicated movements in front of Fong Yin. Fong Yan's body rushed forward, straight into the saber array created by his dozens of slashes. When Fong Yin retreated again, the scimitar was in Fong Yan's hand. The saber was not stained with blood. It was as if it had never been used. A thin red line appeared on the assassin's neck. The thin line became thicker and thicker. Then blood spurted out. The The assassin's eyes widened. Even now, he still did not understand what had happened. What he did not know was that no matter how fast he was, he had to stop in Fong Yan's Tai Chi domain. The disguise he made could not deceive Fong Yan's heart of Tai Chi, whether he took the X line or the S line. Fong Yan only needed to find the line between him and himself. Snatch the saber. Kill. Just in an instant. Fong Yan threw the scimitar in his hand to the ground. Then he rushed forward again. Fong Yixing would not sympathize with the black-robed man. For him, the black-robed man was his biggest enemy at the moment. Whether it was kidnapping Zhou Fan and poisoning him, or intercepting and killing him on the way, he had countless reasons to kill him. A good person? What kind of good person would use such a vicious trick on an old and young family? Fong Yixing was the head of the family. He had the responsibility and obligation to ensure the safety of his family and protect his loved ones from harm. Even if he was not strong enough, he would not abandon such a responsibility. However, Fong Yixing knew that he was not strong enough. He knew that he had no chance of winning against the black-robed man. Therefore, he tied the long saber to his arm and fused himself with the long saber. He would fight the black-robed man to the death. He was willing to give up his life. All he wanted was to slash the black-robed man with his saber. In that case, if Fong Yan encountered him, it would not be so difficult. He was afraid that the black-robed man would hurt his son. It was a very stupid, very barbaric, and very helpless way of giving up. Because for a cultured person like Fong Yixing, this was the only thing he could do. However, he had never been able to do it. After he was sent flying by the black-robed man, he fainted for a long time. More than half of his body was covered in snow. The ice and snow on the ground froze his limbs, creating a natural bed of ice for him. Only when his head was about to be sealed by the ice and snow did he suddenly wake up. His body was weak and powerless. Even opening his eyes was a very difficult thing to do. He heard the black-robed man's voice. He also heard Bai Xiu's voice. Bai Xiu was the most outstanding young man in Swallow Fort. Of course, this evaluation had to be added. After his son's heart of Tai Chi broke through again, he became a young man who could compete with Bai Xiu. Yuan of the Yi family was also an outstanding young man. She was even known as the #1 person in the younger generation of the inner Jianghu. Unfortunately, she was a woman. This was such a pity for the Yi family. Fong Yixing knew very little about Bai Xiu. The two of them could only be considered acquaintances. He knew that Bai Xiu was outstanding and proud, but he did not know what kind of person Bai Xiu was. But he knew that Fong Yin did not like Bai Xiu, because Bai Xiu had stolen the girl he liked the most. Fong Yixing did not move. He did not move at all. He was waiting for his strength to recover, waiting for the opportunity to slash. When the black-robed man was kicked away by Bai Xiu again, when the black-robed man happened to be lying next to Fong Yixing, his opportunity came. He flipped over and stabbed out with the blade he had dreamed of. He felt that he was complete. Shifu, Snake Sovereign shouted anxiously. The current Snake Sovereign had a smile of relief on his face, but he could no longer speak. Blood gushed out from his chest, drenching almost half of his body. He clenched one hand into a fist, and the energy in his body surged toward his head. Bang! Countless white dots flew out of the countless holes on his face. These dots were like silkworm chrysalises that stuck to Fong Yixing's face and body. They began to wriggle and quickly burrow into Fong Yixing's body. These were the ghost sorrow chrysalises that fed on human flesh, blood, and bones. The real Snake Sovereign was a vicious and venomous snake. Chapter 439. Fong Yixing's stab was very fierce, and it pierced right into the black-robed man's heart. His heart had already been pierced, and even a great principal golden immortal would not be able to save him. The black-robed man knew his situation, so he used the last of his strength to spray the ghost's worry snake chrysalis out of his face. When he felt his heavy head lighten up, he finally closed his eyes slowly. The black-robed man died in battle. The curtains fell on the snake monarch. He died pitifully and miserably. Even in death, he did not fulfill his wish. Master, The snake monarch rushed over and hugged his master's body. The snake monarch's body was dripping with blood, and his body gradually became cold. Fang Yixing's body twitched nonstop, and his exposed skin had already turned purplish black. Originally, his head and face were frozen stiff, and his hair and eyebrows were covered in frost. However, in just a few seconds, he began to sweat profusely, as if he was being roasted by a high temperature. His nose began to bleed, and black blood flowed out. Then his eyes, mouth, ears, and even some of the newly formed holes on his face began to bleed. The chrysalis found a new body to attach to and began to feast on the fresh blood and flesh. All the blood was black in color. The blood had already been stained with the venom of the chrysalis and became a pool of unusable blood. Fang Yixing's hand scratched his face randomly. He wanted to tear off a piece of skin and a piece of flesh to pull out those little bugs from his body. However, this was simply too difficult. His face and body were badly mutilated from his scratches. Bai Xiu walked over and looked at Fang Yixing, who was lying on the ground in pain. He frowned slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he used the tip of his sword to stab Fang Yixing's 18 acupuncture points. When those acupuncture points also began to bleed, Fang Yixing's body finally calmed down. He cut off Fang Yixing's pain nerves, so he did not have to endure such pain. Of course, he did not have to bear any pain. He became a vegetable who did not understand pain and cold. In less than a minute, Fang Yixing was tormented by the chrysalis that had drilled into his body and looked like he was neither human nor ghost. He looked like he had aged several decades. Bai Xiu squatted on the ground, looked at Fang Yixing and asked, "What do you have to say?" He knew that with Fang Yixing's body condition, he wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. The last snake monarch had planted a pupa before he died, and even the current snake monarch had no way of taking it out. What's more, Fang Yixing had just stabbed Snake Lord's master to death. Snake Lord might not be willing to help Fang Yixing take out the monsters in his body that made people want to die. Fang Yixing's face was covered in blood, and he looked very scary. He looked at Bai Xiu with a fawning smile. She wasn't trying to curry favor with him, but rather, she was begging him to pass on her words, because Bai Xiu was the only person he could entrust it to. I've always been proud of Fang Yin, proud to have such a son. He's very talented in the path of martial arts, and he's also very smart. I don't need to tell him this, he knows this. Fang Yixing said softly, I don't know how far he can go in the future, but I know that he will go very, very far in the future. He will go to the place that we, the ancestors, can't see. I firmly believe this because he's my son, although I, as his father, can't be like him. No matter how hard I try, I can't be better than him. I trust Fang Yin very much, so I have nothing to say. My father only hopes that he can take care of himself, and I know that Fang Yin can take good care of him. I want you to pass on a message to Lu Wan. Fang Yixing's eyes were sad, and 2 streaks of bloody tears slid down his cheeks. He said with a sad and regretful voice, I can't tell her face to face, and I can't say in front of her, I love her. I've never said this before, and I won't have the chance to say it in the future. If I don't say it now, I may never be able to say it to her in this lifetime. I, Fang Yixing, have been mediocre all my life, and I may not have the chance to enter the ancestral hall of the Fang family after I die. If I have the chance to enter, write on my plaque that I'm the husband of a good woman and the father of a good son. Fang Yixing reached out to grab Bai Xiu's hand and begged, bring it back for me. I will bring it back, Bai Xiu nodded and said. Thank you, Fang Yixing said in a weak voice. His hand fell down, and he closed his eyes unwillingly. Fang Yixing of Swallow Dock died in battle. Fang Yin finally arrived. He saw his grandfather's disciple, Wang Dong, and his father, Fang Yixing. He saw 2 corpses. Fang Yan's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were torn. He ran over barefooted. His eyes were full of murderous intent, and he looked like a mountain ghost or a savage man. He knelt in front of Fang Yixing and didn't dare to touch his body. There was no sadness or joy on his face, as if he had become an idiot. Yes, Fang Yin had indeed become an idiot. He couldn't accept the fact in front of him, and he didn't want to accept the fact in front of him. How could his father die? How could his father die? Fang Yin, Get up and practice. Dad, it's only 6 o'clock. The sun isn't even up. The ancients dance at the sound of the rooster, and the rooster has crowed 3 times. Get up quickly, and don't be lazy. A father was strict because he couldn't do it himself, so he hoped that his son could do it. He put all his hopes and efforts on Fong Yan. This was also the reason why Fong Yan had a grudge against him, and the relationship between father and son had never been so close. Fong Yan had a good relationship with his mother, Lu Wan, but he lacked friendly communication with his father, Fong Yixing. Fong Yixing liked to scold his son with a straight face, but Fong Yan didn't fall for it all. He felt that his son was stubborn and inflexible. Conflicts between the two often broke out. Fong Yan, there are 3 mistakes in the rules for a disciple that you wrote down from memory today. Go and copy it 30 times. Are you going to copy the mistakes 30 times? Yes, copy the whole thing 30 times. Dad, don't disobey. Because he liked ancient literature, he hoped that his son could also like ancient literature. He taught him how to write with a brush and taught him how to leave blank and how thick the ink should be. He hoped that his son would be well-versed in both literature and martial arts. He hoped that his son would become a dragon among men. He hoped that his son would be the most outstanding son in the world. Therefore, when his son made a mistake, or when his son wrote a wrong poem or sentence, he punished his son very severely. Fong Yan, I want to discuss something with you, Dad. You say your grandfather and the Yi family have discussed it, and they want you to compete with the girl from the Yi family. Dad, why should I compete with the woman from the Yi family? She doesn't like me, and I don't like her. She's cold and always has a straight face, as if everyone owes her $200. It's an exchange competition to deepen the relationship between the 2 families. Friendship comes first, competition comes second. You just need to go on stage and do a perfunctory job. Don't think too much. Okay, then. I'll just have a casual competition with her. Fong Yan, I want to discuss something with you, Dad. You say your grandfather and the Yi family have discussed it, and they want you to compete with the girl from the Yi family again. Compete again? Didn't we just compete last year? No, I won't compete with her. She hit my eyes until they were swollen, and I didn't have the face to go out for more than a month. It's because you lost last year's competition, and your grandfather isn't convinced, so he wants you to compete with her again. Your grandfather is old, and his health isn't good. Why don't we just accommodate him? It hasn't been easy for the old man to live his life. Isn't he just fighting for his pride now? Dad, I'm afraid I can't beat her. That woman is too powerful. Her Yi family's fist is already at the 3rd rank. That won't happen. You are our Fong family's most talented Taiji successor. Even underestimate says that you are a martial arts genius. Your grandfather has pinned all his hopes on you, and I also believe that you can do it. What if I lose again? Impossible. What? Fong Yan is sick? Shoo. Lower your voice. Our son has just fallen asleep. Just now his fever reached 39. 6. Tell me, what kind of lousy training method are you thinking of? What kind of method is not good? But you want him to take off his clothes and run along the shore of Shahizi and use the snow to wipe his body. How low is the temperature today? How can the child not get sick on such a cold day? That's because his physique is too weak. If his physique is strong enough, would this bit of cold wind be enough to make him catch a cold? That won't do. Our Fong family doesn't have such a weak bone. When he recovers, we have to double the difficulty of the training. Don't you dare. The child is already so sick, and you're still thinking of how to torture him. I don't agree, and I won't allow you to train the child in such a way. You're just being unreasonable. Do you know that? A loving mother will spoil her son. Fong Yixing slammed the door and left. When Fong Yan was half asleep, a gentle and honest man's voice came over. Fong Yixing held a bowl of black Chinese medicine and squatted beside Fong Yan's bed. He lowered his voice and said softly, Fong Yan, I made a bowl of medicinal soup for you. Come, drink this soup. You'll be better after you drink it. The medicine is bitter. It's not bitter. I specially added a piece of rock candy for you. Fong Yan, the weather is cold. Your mother told you to take care of your body. Fong Yan, have you been busy with your studies recently? Your mother told you to come back when you have time. She's been talking about you recently. Fong Yan, your mother said, this was a tough and gentle man. This was a man who was stubborn and tolerant with no bottom line. This was a man with great literary talent, but was not good at expressing himself verbally. This was an excellent husband, a great father. Dad. Fang Yin hugged Fang Yixing's stiff body that was wrapped in ice and snow, shouting hoarsely. Tears gushed out like a fountain. Chapter 440. When the news of Fang Yixing's death reached Swallow Dock, everyone was shocked. Fang Yin carried Fang Yixing's body back to the village. One by one, the red doors were pushed open in the wind and snow. He was a real man. A stocky, middle-aged man sighed. What a pity. They all say that Yixing doesn't look like a man from Swallow Dock. Isn't he like a man from Swallow Dock? He is a man from Swallow Dock. What he's done isn't something that every young master in Swallow Fort can do. An elderly woman praised. The old man had to die before the young man. That old dog Feng Hui is really pitiful. The white-haired old man with his hands in his sleeves shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that he didn't die on the battlefield. Otherwise, we can carve his name on the stone tablet at the village entrance. A young man said. Regardless of how the villagers of Swallow Dock felt about Fang Yixing's death, wherever Fang Yin passed by, huge soul-summoning white banners would be raised in the courtyards one after another. On the biggest tree in front of or behind each house, a long white cloth with a spirit-summoning talisman was raised. There was a line of words on the white cloth. The Eastern Pole Immortal Tai ordered the Golden Boy and Jade Girl to lead my father and mother to the world of immortals. The white cloth was unfolded in the wind and fluttered in the cold wind. In the end, the whole village was hung with the spirit-summoning flags. This phenomenon had just occurred not long ago. The sword god from East Ocean, Chiba Bin, died in battle. The villagers of Swallow Dock felt his loyalty and spontaneously hung white flags to summon his soul. This was a great honor for the villagers of Swallow Dock. Fang Yan's expression was stiff. His hands were no longer his hands, and his feet were no longer his feet. His face wasn't his face, and his heart wasn't his heart. Every step he took was like a machine without any emotion. Behind him, white banners rose up one after another. In front of him, there were many Fang family members lined up to welcome him. At the front of the line was Feng Hui. His hands tightly grasped the handle of the wheelchair. Because he used too much force, several pieces of the old paint were rubbed off. He didn't dare to look at his son's body in Fang Yan's arms. His eyes were red, and there were turbid tears in his eyes. He shouted in a hoarse and heroic voice, "A good man dies on the battlefield. He doesn't retreat or hide. He dies a heroic death. Raise the flag." First Aunt Fang Yisin and second Aunt Fang Yiling were crying uncontrollably. Lu Wan had already fainted from crying when she heard the news. Now he collapsed on the bed, unable to stand up. First Uncle Fang Hao, second Uncle Zhao Qingxin, and a group of men ran over and took Fang Yixing's body from Fang Yan's hands. Then he ran towards the coffin that had been set up in the inner room. According to the rules of Swallow Dock, the deceased had to be revered by their loved ones for 3 days before being buried. Fang Yin seemed to have lost his soul. There were no tears, no sorrow, and he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. He passed by his grandfather Feng Hui, the weeping women, and his mother's room. Then he came to the mourning hall and knelt in front of the coffin. Some people burned incense, some people set off firecrackers, and some people burned paper money. Some people cried, some people howled, and some people mourned. Some people knelt beside Fang Yin. Some people comforted Fang Yin to drink water and eat, and some people told Fang Yin to restrain his grief. Fang Yin had long lost his self-awareness. His divine sense had entered another world. He automatically rejected and abandoned everything in this world. In the world he was in, there were only him, Lu Wan, and Fang Yixing and his family of 3. There were scenes of him cheering when Fang Yixing bought him his first bicycle. There were scenes of Fang Yixing correcting his mistakes in the Tang and Song poems. There were also scenes of Fang Yixing angrily whipping Fang Yin because he was lazy in practicing martial arts. He was erudite and had a good memory. His calligraphy and painting were first class. The famous calligraphy and painting master, Mr. Chen Daoming, once said that he was qualified to be a professor at Shuemu University and Yenjing University. However, he was never good at expressing his feelings. He only scolded and scolded his son. Every time he showed concern, he had to use, "Your mother said so." He was polite to his wife. He didn't have a diamond ring or rose, and he never said, "I love you." However, he loved and protected them with all his heart, with all that he had and all that he could do. Every farewell hug had to be stronger, because this might be a farewell forever. Every wish had to be fulfilled as soon as possible, because there might be no future. Yi Daoling returned. He took half a day out of his busy work and brought his daughter, Yi Zi, to pay respects to Fang Yixing. After he offered incense in front of Fang Yixing's memorial tablet, he looked at Fang Yin, who was kneeling on the ground. He sighed softly and took his daughter's hand to leave. Yi Daoxian came, and he brought his son, Yi Fengsheng. Yi Daoxian offered incense. Yi Fengsheng knelt in front of the memorial tablet and kowtowed 3 times. His head was bleeding, and he cried even more miserably than Fang Yin. Yi Daowen also came, and he came with his wife. Yi Daowen offered incense in front of the memorial tablet, while his wife went to the inner room to comfort Lu Wan, who had been lying on the bed for 2 days. The old lady of the Li family came, and the old man of the Zhang family came. The old lady of the Ruan family came. The teacher came. The teacher went to visit the old man, Fang Huwei, and then left. Yi Ro came. Yi Ro came and knelt. She knelt beside Fang Yin without saying a word. Her face was cold. Summer came. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin also came after receiving the news. Qin Etian also came. Qin Etian knelt on the other side of Fang Yin. He didn't say a word to him, nor did he smile. The people she brought were busy helping with Fang Yixing's funeral, as if they were treating their own family. Bai Xiu also came. Bai Xiu offered 3 incense sticks in front of Fang Yixing's memorial tablet, and then stood in front of Fang Yin. He looked at Fang Yin and asked, "Are you very sad?" Fang Yin didn't respond. He couldn't hear what the others were saying, and he didn't want to hear what they were saying. The person he wanted to listen to the most was now lying in that narrow wooden box. What did it matter to him what the others said? "When I went there, he was already dead," Bai Xiu said in a flat voice. But he couldn't swallow his last breath, and he didn't want to use his last strength. He just wanted to stab him. He just wanted to stab him. You didn't see the satisfied expression on his face. He always wanted to do something for his son, and that was his only wish. He did it, so he left with peace of mind. He had a lot of things he didn't want to do, but he didn't have the slightest regret. He wanted to be a good father, and he was indeed a good father. Bai Xiu glanced at Yi Ro and Qin Etian, who were kneeling on both sides of Fang Yin, and then turned around and walked toward the inner room of the Fang family. Lu Wan's room was crowded with people. Fang Yin's 3 aunts and some women who were close to Swallow Dock all gathered there, talking about family trivia and comforting Lu Wan so that she would not go to extremes. Bai Xiu stood at the door of the room and knocked on the door, but he didn't enter the room. Lu Wan hadn't eaten or drunk for 2 days in a row, and she was extremely haggard. Her cheeks were thin, and her eyes were deep. Seeing Bai Xiu appear in front of her, Lu Wan immediately jumped up from the bed. She ran to Bai Xiu, grabbed his arm, and asked anxiously, "Bai Xiu, when Yixing left, you were the only one who was with him. Tell me, did he suffer? Did he have any regrets when he left? Did he ask you to bring any message?" Not only Lu Wan was concerned about this question, but the 3 sisters of the Fang family and other women also gathered around. They wanted to know the last situation of Fang Yixing, and they hoped that he didn't have any pain or regret when he left. Since he couldn't live well, then they hoped that he could leave peacefully. Bai Xiu's expression was calm, and his voice was gentle. He said gently and elegantly, "Aunt Lu, Uncle Fang left peacefully, and he didn't leave any regrets. He said that he trusted Fang Yin very much, and he was proud to have such a son." Lu Wan's eyes became moist, and big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. She said in a sad voice, "Yixing never said it, but I know he has always been proud of his son. He always wanted to call his son, but he didn't know what to say to him. Every time he dialed the number, he would ask me to pick it up. He would secretly listen to the conversation, as if he was talking to his son on the phone. Since he had promised something, he must do it. Therefore, even though he thought it was cruel, Bai Xiu still told Lu Wan truthfully. Uncle Fong asked me to bring you a message. What message? What message did he ask you to bring? He said. Bai Xiu's expression was respectful, and his voice was serious. He regretted that he couldn't say this to you face to face, and he said that he couldn't say it in front of you. He was afraid that if he didn't say it at that time, he wouldn't have another chance. Bai Xiu looked at Lu Wan and said softly, he said he loved you. Wah! Lu Wan burst into tears, and she cried until she fainted. After the coffin was stopped for 3 days, Fang Yixing would be buried. Fang Yin wore mourning clothes and walked at the front of the farewell procession with a mourning stick in his hand. Fang Yingying, Fang Haoan, Yi Fengsheng, Li Xiaodian, and a group of friends who hadn't left Swallow Dock followed closely behind, carrying the banner. According to the tradition, girls like Yi Ro and Qin Etian only needed to wear a short mourning ceremony. But the two insisted on wearing the same mourning ceremony as Fang Yin, which made the old man in charge of the funeral in the village feel awkward for a long time. He discussed it with the old man Fang Huwei for a long time before he agreed. When Fang Yin dropped the first handful of dust, the men who had been waiting at the side shoveled the soil into the grave. Wang Dong's grave was dug behind Fang Yixing, and the two brothers were together in life and death. Soon, the deep pit was filled, and the coffin was covered. From then on, they were separated by life and death. The old man in the village sprinkled the spiritual water with a willow branch and shouted in a long, sad tone, "Homeward bound, homeward bound, homeward bound." Chapter 441. Rosefinch Secondary. The best private secondary school in Huacheng. There was no other. The 10th of September was a joyous day for the new students. One by one, the lucky students who received the admission notice from Rosefinch Secondary arrived at the school, gate accompanied by their parents and family members. They looked at the bright golden words, Rosefinch Secondary, hanging above the school gate with admiration and joy. After years of hard work, they finally entered the famous school that they dreamed of. Their hearts ached, but they wouldn't cry tears of joy again, because they had already done this before. Even the parents of the students couldn't help but stop their hurried footsteps and stand beside their son or daughter. They couldn't help but sigh proudly. It's not easy to enter Rosefinch High School. All the students knew that being able to enter Rosefinch High School was equivalent to having one foot in the door of a university. As for the other foot, it was just a matter of deciding which famous school to enter. Rosefinch Secondary had the most powerful teachers, the most advanced facilities, and the most open and free learning atmosphere. Here, no teachers would force you to learn anything. They would only guide you to take the initiative to be interested in a certain field. You could write poems or draw. You could practice calligraphy. You could be proficient in a foreign language. You could study history or chess. You could do whatever you wanted to do and unleash your passion for learning. Because you would find that when you do the things you like, you would need a lot of knowledge and preparation. The deeper your love, the more thorough your research, the more you would feel weak and insignificant. You would be like a hungry monster that opened its huge mouth, hoping to swallow all the knowledge into its stomach. The new principal of Rosefinch High School once said this in the media. Every student is a treasure house, and the teacher is the key to this treasure house. If the teacher treated himself as a treasure house and the students as a warehouse to transfer their wealth, then the wealth in the warehouse would become less and less. In the end, the warehouse would become unsightly and pitiful. Senior brothers and sisters in white shirts, blue uniforms, and black ties were busily making their way through the crowd, attentively guiding the new juniors to go through various procedures and introducing some related facilities and club information of the school. Our school has a literature club. The famous writer Lu Xiaofan is the honorary president of our literature club. The current president is the youth best-selling author Luo. The standard of our school's Go Club is quite high. This year, we represented Huacheng in the International Youth Go Tournament in Japan and won the first prize for both the individual and the team. Oh, this is already the second year that we've won a Grand Slam. The tea ceremony club was established by Senior Chin Etienne. Do you know Senior Chin Etienne? Back then, he was a legendary figure in our Flower City. What? You guys know Senior Sister Etienne? Anyway, if you like the tea ceremony, you can go and sign up. Let's not talk about other things. The beauties in the tea ceremony society are the most elegant. A man in a black robe stood at the gate of Rosefinch Secondary. He looked at the ancient gate of Rosefinch Secondary in silence. His eyes were clear and pure. It was easy for people to have a good impression of him. But when you looked into his eyes, you would find that the pool was deep and boundless. If you were not careful, you would fall into it and be unable to get out. His chin was clean-shaven. There was only a light green stubble left. His body stood perfectly straight, like a spear that would never bend, like a pine tree that could support the heavens and the earth. This was a very contradictory personality. He had the demeanor of a young man, but he also had the experience of an adult. These two characteristics fused together to form his unique charm. "Hey!" A clear voice called out from behind him. The man in the robe turned around and saw a beautiful girl talking to him. The girl was wearing a set of white sportswear, a pair of white canvas shoes, and a red cap on her head. Her face was rosy, and there were fine beads of sweat on her forehead. She exuded a youthful aura. There was a Hello Kitty suitcase beside her feet. She should be one of the new students who came to Rosefinch Secondary today. "Are you talking to me?" The man in the robe looked around and doubtfully asked, "If I'm not talking to you, who else could it be?" The girl giggled. "There's no one else in front of me. Are you talking to a ghost?" "What's the matter?" The man in the robe silently laughed and asked. "You're so strange," the girl said. "I've been staring at you. You've been staring at the gate of this school. You've been standing here for a while now, not saying a word, not moving at all. What are you thinking about?" "I was also standing here 3 years ago," the man in the robe said. He was also standing here 3 years ago. At the time, he was in a good mood and felt refreshed. Being bullied by a violent woman was already a big deal. 3 years later, things are still the same, but people have changed. 3 years ago? Ah, you're also a student of Rosefinch Secondary? Then you're my senior. Senior? Which university are you studying at right now? I heard that Rosefinch High's university entrance exam results have been quite good these past few years. There was even a class that was 100% accepted into a famous school, shocking the entire education world at the time. The man in the robe lightly shook his head and spoke with a nostalgic tone. "I'm not a student." "Not a student?" "I'm a teacher at Rosefinch High," the man in the robe said. "Ah." The girl opened her eyes wide and said, "No way." "Your teacher? How come I can't tell it all?" The girl was thinking that it would be lucky to have such a handsome teacher at school. The man in the robe chuckled and said nothing. "I'm Suki. Then you. What's your name?" The man didn't answer her question and said, "Goodbye." Saying so, the man walked towards the gate of Rosefinch Secondary. "How annoying." The girl stomped her foot in annoyance and said, "You still haven't told me your name." The old man in the robe didn't hear her complaint because his figure was already far away. In front of the school's security booth, a man in a green security uniform was lecturing a few punks with blonde hair with a serious expression and said, "You brats want to break into the school again. Don't blame me for not telling you. What is this place? It's a place for students to learn, a place to train talents for the country. You don't study properly, you don't find a good job outside. Instead, you want to run into the school all day to harm the girls inside. How can you do that?" "Harm?" A blonde with a row of shiny earrings on his right ear sneered and said, "I say, Baldy, do you know how to talk? I'm here to visit my girlfriend. How am I a harm? We're in love with each other. Do you know what in love with each other is? You don't, right? Look at you, a coward with weeds growing on his head. Probably no girl will like you in this lifetime. You call that in love with each other?" You pursued Li Jingjing, a second-year student, and she was so scared that she avoided you. Because you guarded the school gate all day, Li Jingjing didn't dare to go home for several days. I say you guys should do some good and let the girls study in peace and not worry about you punks all day, or else I'll send you to the police station. The punks looked at each other and then laughed. "Brother Xing, he said he'll send us to the police station. I'm so scared." "Police station? What is that place? Have we been there? Is there a buffet inside?" Brother Xing likes to visit the police station when he has nothing to do. We're familiar with that place. Baldy, do you want to take you in for a tour? The man with the earring pointed at Baldy with an arrogant expression and said, I say, Baldy, don't blame me, Brother Xiaoxing, for not giving you face. Since you've said it, then send me to the police station. If I beg you for mercy, you'll be my biological father. Baldy was so angry that his face turned red and his body trembled. He pulled out the baton at his waist and said angrily, I'm telling you, as long as I, Baldy, guard the school gate, you hooligans won't be able to step into the school gate. I can't go in even if you guard the school gate, but you can't do anything outside the school, right? Is it illegal for me to pursue a girl outside the school? I don't care if it's inside or outside the school. I won't allow you to bully the students of our school, or else I'll call the police and arrest all of you. Who do you think you are? You're just the school's security captain, not Huaqing's police chief. Damn, Baldy, you can't control me. Before the earring man's voice died away, his body had already left the ground. He wanted to speak, but he found that the back of his neck was being strangled. He couldn't struggle, couldn't speak, and even had difficulty breathing. His lackeys saw that their big brother was being humiliated and immediately rushed toward their target. Bang! The first hooligan who rushed up was kicked away. He was flying freely in the air, and it seemed that he wouldn't land for a while. Crack! The second hooligan who rushed up was punched in the nose, and the sound of his nose breaking was sharp and ear-piercing. Pa! The third hooligan who rushed halfway wanted to turn around and run away, but his butt was kicked. His body rolled on the ground, and then he fell to the ground in an extremely embarrassing manner. The other hooligans were silent, and their faces were full of fear. They stood still and didn't dare to move. The man in the robe pulled out the little black tie from the earring man's neck and skillfully tied his hands and feet with the bundling technique, making him look like a dumpling. Then he carried the big dumpling and hung it on the old locust tree at the entrance of the conservative pavilion and said, Hang it here. Is the tree okay? He was afraid that the old locust tree couldn't bear the weight of the earring man's body, and the trunk would be crushed. Baldy's eyes were red, and he rushed up to pull the arm of the man in the robe and said in a choked voice, Fong Yin, you're finally back. Chapter 442. The guy who hung on the tree is called Li Xiaoxing. He's a famous gangster in this area. He's always around the school. Recently, he's been pursuing a girl called Li Jingjing. That girl is very afraid of him. She's too scared to go out. Baldy didn't know where he learned this bad habit of grabbing someone's sleeve and not letting go. It was as if he was afraid that Fong Yin would disappear again if he let go. With me, Baldy, there's no way he can enter our school. But it's not good for them to keep guarding outside the school. I can take care of the school, but who can take care of the things outside the school? Call the police. It's useless. That guy is a habitual offender. He's been in and out of the police station several times. He didn't do anything serious. The police can't do anything to him. A red light flashed in Fong Yan's eyes, but he didn't respond to Baldy's question. Principal's office. Zhong Dei placed a cup of hot tea in front of Fong Yan. He then sat on the sofa opposite him and looked at him seriously. After a long silence, he said with a sigh, Fong Yan, it's been 3 years. We've been waiting for you for 3 years. You're finally back. Fong Yixing died in battle. Fong Yin stayed in Swallow Dock to mourn for 3 years. 3 years had changed too many people, and too many things had happened. The old principal of Rosefinch Secondary, Zhang Xiaofeng, retired. Before he retired, he invited the former principal of Ivy League School, Zhong Dei, to be the new principal of Rosefinch according to the agreement he made with Fong Yan. Zhong Dei was indeed a famous madman principal in Huaqing's education circle. After he came to Rosefinch, he carried out bold and decisive reforms. The good ones were promoted and the bad ones were cut down. He handed in a beautiful answer sheet in the shortest time possible. The teachers and students of Rosefinch, who were originally dissatisfied or hostile towards him, looked at him in a new light. Rosefinch High School's performance over the past 3 years had been outstanding in Huaqing's education circle. Regardless of whether it was its results or its reputation, it had become the private high school of choice for Huaqing students. There were even many parents who traveled a great distance to ask for their children's education. In the past, I never had the chance to talk to him properly, so I spent 3 years by his side. Fang Yan's voice was calm and gentle, and there was no emotion on his face. However, there was still a trace of sorrow in his eyes that was difficult to dissolve. I talked a great deal to him, and heard him talk a great deal to me. I felt I understood him better. She wanted to know what kind of person he was. Isn't it too slow and cruel for you to only understand what kind of person the most important person in your life is? Zhongdei sighed softly and said, regarding your father's matter, I also feel very sorry in my heart. Filial piety is the way of human relationships. I can't blame you for doing something wrong, but you have to know that there are many students waiting for you here. They waited for you for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They waited for you for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. They asked the school countless times, why didn't Mr. Fong come back? Why did Mr. Fong come back? They couldn't get through to your phone, and they didn't have your contact information, so they could only ask the school again and again. They waited from the first year to the second year, and from the second year to the third year. In the end, they didn't manage to wait for you. This year, they all took the exam. Except for Qin Yiqian, who didn't participate in the exam, the entire class of 40 students were all admitted to famous universities in various fields. They became the college entrance examination legends of our Huaqing's education circle, or rather, the entire Huaxia's education circle. Zhongdei revealed an excited expression and said, to us educators, this is such a good group of students. Unfortunately, your teacher-student relationship is still too short. If you could take care of them for 3 years and personally send them to the examination hall, what kind of ability would they display? What kind of people would they become? How many writers would there be? How many philosophers would there be? How many mathematicians or calligraphers would there be? Fang Yin chuckled and said, when I wasn't there, they still did very well in the exam. The master leads the way, but cultivation is up to the individual. I told them how to study, and I drew out their passion for knowledge. They could still do very well without me. When you weren't there, they were all suppressing a certain energy in their hearts. Zhongdei shook his head and said, I've seen your file. You didn't stay in Rosefinch for a long time, but you are indeed a very talented teacher. Your scenario simulation method is very effective, and now I've already promoted it to the whole school in Rosefinch. Other schools also come to us to secretly learn from you. I'm very happy that you can come back. What are your plans? Today is the day for new students to enter the school, and another batch of students entered Rosefinch to further their studies. I'll give you a class or 2. Fang Yin rejected and said, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. You don't want to be a teacher anymore? Then what do you want to do? Zhongdei looked at Fang Yin with a puzzled expression and said, Fang Yin, I, Zhongdei, rarely admire people, but I have to admit that you do have a lot of ideas in teaching and educating people. I'm far inferior to you in this aspect. Be a teacher and train a few more outstanding students for our Rosefinch, okay? I'll be a security guard, Fang Yin said. Fang Yin walked out of the headmaster's office. Baldy, who sent him here, was still guarding the entrance of the administrative building. Seeing Fang Yin come out, Baldy hurriedly greeted him and reached out to hold Fang Yin's arm, but Fang Yin avoided it without leaving a trace. Baldy looked at Fang Yin, grinned and laughed, and said, Have you talked to Headmaster Zhong? Which class are you going to teach? But if I were Headmaster Zhong, I would definitely arrange a few more classes for you. You don't know, the class you taught before, 100% of the students were admitted to a famous school. If you stayed in the school, you would have been promoted for 3 years, and the bonus from that year would have been, oh, this school is yours. How can you reward yourself? I won't teach classes, Fang Yin said. You won't teach classes? You won't be a teacher? Baldy looked at Fang Yin in horror. Fang Yin, are you here to say goodbye to everyone? The last time you went back for the spring festival, you didn't come back for 3 years. If I let you go this time, I'm afraid you'll never come back to see us again, right? I'll be a security guard, Fang Yin said. He looked at Baldy's anxious face and felt a warm feeling in his heart. These friends really cared about him and hoped that he could stay in Rosefinch to teach. If it wasn't necessary, who would be willing to say goodbye so easily? From today onwards, I'll be one of your soldiers. Baldy also showed an expression of disbelief. His eyes were as big as Headmaster Zhongdei's, but the difference was that Headmaster Zhongdei was so angry that he smashed his cup. That was his favorite handmade cloisonné cup, and he usually treasured it very much. Fong Yin stood next to the bus stop at the school gate. He didn't have to wait too long before a black Mercedes-Benz slowly drove over. Fong Yin opened the door and got in. A familiar fragrance wafted into his nose. Lu Chaoga, who was wearing a silver suit, reached out and grabbed Fong Yan's hand. She didn't say anything and just looked at him with a joyful expression. The car stopped in front of a small courtyard in the villa area. The door was opened by a man in black from the outside. Lu Chaoga took Fong Yan's hand and got out of the car. She bent down to help Fong Yin take his slippers. After Fong Yin changed his shoes, she pulled Fong Yin to sit on the sofa in the living room. She put a cup of fragrant, top-notch silver needles in front of Fong Yin and turned on the TV to the documentary channel. Then she quickly went upstairs while giggling. When Lu Chaoga came downstairs again, the exquisite suit on her body had disappeared. Of course, she changed it to a set of white casual sportswear. She took tomatoes, cabbage, meat, and fresh fish from the freezer and began to busy herself in the kitchen. She made a tomato scrambled egg, a sour and spicy cabbage, a celery shredded pork, and a milky white fish soup with a few green onions floating on it. Lu Chaoga took Fong Yin to wash his hands and then put a bowl of fragrant rice in front of him. "Do you want a drink?" Lu Chaoga asked. "No," Fong Yin said. "Then let's eat," Lu Chaoga said. Fong Yin nodded, picked up the bowl, and began to eat. Lu Chaoga kept helping Fong Yin to eat and said aloud, "Since our first product went on the market 2 years ago, the technology of the Rubik's Cube has been constantly developed and widely used in various fields. We borrowed the channels of the Liu and Lan families to quickly cover the market with our products. All the logos with flames are our products. The logo of Chaoyan Technology was 2 burning flames above and below, and all the products of Chaoyan Technology were stamped with the logo of a flame." Using a sentence used by Finance Magazine when reporting on Chaoyan Technology, it was, "This fire lit up the whole world and created a company and a woman." The development of Chaoyan Technology is very rapid. We have set up branches in Yanjing, Mingzhou, Pengcheng, and Xiangtan. We have bought a new office building in Huacheng, but I still work in the same old place because the core research institute of Chaoyan is still there. Our market share is getting higher and higher, and the variety of products we produce is increasing. We have applied for nearly 100 related product patents, and there are countless products in our Chaoyan Underground Research Institute that are being tested or about to be launched on the market. Our products are not only for civilian use, but also for military products in cooperation with the military. Of course, this matter is still confidential. Some foreign companies want to cooperate with us, and some consortia want to buy our company's shares or want to cooperate with us. I refuse. We are not short of money now. We have a lot of money now. Every day when I go to the office to see the new financial statements, I find that the money in the company's account has increased again. Sometimes I don't have time to carefully check how many digits there are. Why? Fong Yin interrupted her and asked, "What?" Lu Chaoga held the chopsticks and looked at Fong Yin. "When you were very young, your parents are no longer around. You were alone, living in the enemy's home, and your only relative was your aunt. She didn't spend too much time with you. You have it harder than me, so why do you sympathize with me?" Lu Chaoga pondered for a long time and said softly, "Because I have long been used to those things. I'm afraid you won't be used to it." Chapter 443. She was used to the death of her parents. She was used to being helpless. She was used to being wronged. She was used to all kinds of misfortunes and disasters. However, she was worried that Fong Yin would not be used to it. When a person's fate was full of misfortunes and tribulations, when a person suffered too much pain and lost too much, her heart would become hard, and her body would become strong. She would shelter him from the wind and rain, and she would welcome the morning glow and bathe in the starlight for him. Just like the flowers on the cliff, they were more aloof and independent than the wildflowers and weeds at the foot of the mountain. Lu Chaoga was the flower on the cliff, and the former Fong Yin was the flower in the greenhouse. When the flower on the cliff saw the flower in the greenhouse, there would always be some worry and also some pity. The wind was so strong outside, and the snow was so fierce. Could his thin and weak body withstand it? Lu Chaogan knew that Fong Yin was suffering unimaginable sorrow, just like what she had suffered when she was a child. However, she gritted her teeth and stubbornly endured it. It was a kind of tearing pain, as if she was awake to remove an organ from her body. Father, which organ of the body should he correspond to? I'm worried that you won't be used to it. Hearing Lu Chaoga's answer, Fong Yin was stunned for a moment. He looked at Lu Chaoga's pretty face, which was full of concern, and said softly, "The place where I was born, there is a very bad habit. The men there all like to say heroic words like valuing friendship over life and death. For public and private reasons, they don't hesitate to pay with their lives. So, every year there will be people leaving. Some people die in the strange and dangerous North Sea, and even their bones can't be retrieved. Some people die in the hot and boundless Gobi, and their bodies are submerged in quicksand, staying there forever. Some people die in battle, some people die of illness, and some people die in pursuit of martial arts. Sometimes they receive the news of the death of distant relatives on the morning of spring. Sometimes they receive the phone call on the summer night. Sometimes it's the double ninth festival, and sometimes it's the eve of the new year. You can choose the day of birth, but who can choose the day of death?" Fong Yin held the rice bowl and filled a bowl of fresh fish soup for himself, and then sipped it. "I thought I had seen through this kind of thing very easily. There are even times when I'm hot-headed and think that I can do what others can." Fong Yin laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "So I can't do it. I'm not brave, I'm a little cowardly." "You're not a coward." Lu Chaoga comforted him softly. "You're just too emotional." Fong Yin shook his head and said, "When I was alive, I didn't even have a good talk with him or drink with him once. What's the point of waiting for him after he's dead?" This kind of expression can't be called emotional, right? I'm just too guilty. When he was alive, I didn't take a good look at his paintings or appreciate his words. I knew he was busy with his art exhibition, but I didn't even go over to ask if it was going well or if he needed any help. He lived in his world, and I lived in mine. Although we were a family, I always felt that he didn't understand me, and I didn't understand him. So this time, I stayed in Swallow Dock for 3 years. I looked through all of his previous paintings, and I didn't even miss the manuscripts under the bookshelves. I went through every word and poem he had written, even the mistakes he had made. Some of the words were very good, which proved that he was in a good mood at that time. Some of the words were very bad. At that time, he was probably very annoyed, right? Later, I discovered a secret. When he wrote beautiful words, there would be something that made him happy that day. For example, I received the title of outstanding graduate from school, or my martial arts improved to his satisfaction. On the day I felt the heart of Tai Chi for the first time, he drew a painting called A Young Man's Morning Practice. A young man was diligently practicing martial arts in the morning light. The sun in the painting was dyed red by him, which proved that he must have been very excited at that time. Fong Yin couldn't continue and lowered his head to drink the soup. As the warm and delicious fish soup entered his stomach, Fong Yin's depressed mood slightly relaxed. "It's not that I'm not used to it. I just don't want to." Fong Yin smiled and said, "I just don't want to. That's all." Lu Chaoga looked at Fong Yin, her beautiful eyes filled with deep worry. She said, "Fong Yin, why did you come to Flower City?" "There are too many things to do. I can't keep waiting." Fong Yin replied, "Besides my previous students, they're also waiting for me." "Fong Yin, don't you think this is too risky?" Lu Chaoga didn't believe Fong Yin's explanation. She said, "I know you. I know what kind of man you are. You waited in Swallow Dock for 3 years, and you waited for 3 years. You thought that those people would appear again. You thought that they would attack you again, but they didn't appear, as if they had disappeared from this world. So, You left Swallow Dock, left Yanjing, and came to Flower City, the most dangerous place where your strength is the weakest. You want to use your life to lure the snake out of its hole? Fang Yin, this is too dangerous. Go back to Swallow Dock. That is the safest place. They're capable of anything. Fang Yan's eyes were filled with a terrifying red light, and the white of his eyes were mottled with red veins. He looked at Lu Chaoga and said calmly, "But conflicts have to be resolved. They killed my father, so let me kill their entire family. You see, this isn't too much to ask, right?" Fang Yin saw Lu Chaoga's surprised expression and asked, "Are you not used to it? I didn't speak like this before. If I encountered such a problem, I would use another way to say it. I would tell you that I'm a pacifist and then secretly kill their entire family. This is my style, isn't it?" Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Indeed, that is your style. I hope that you are still the same as before. Back then, although you had a vicious mouth, your heart was very kind. You were willing to think for others." "No, I can't do it." Fang Yin patted his chest and said, "Every night, it feels like I'm being burned by fire, tormenting me to the point that I can't sleep. Only when this fire is extinguished can I return to my previous self." "Then we'll take it slow. Don't be in a hurry," Lu Chaoga said. "What are you going to do in Rosefinch? Are you still going to be a teacher?" "No," Fang Yin said. "My current state of mind is not suitable to be a teacher. I'm afraid that I won't be able to control my emotions. Being a teacher is something you're good at. If you don't want to be a teacher, what do you want to be? Security?" Lu Chaoga almost spat out the fish soup in her mouth. "Security?" Lu Chaoga almost spat out the fish soup in her mouth. If it weren't for the fact that she had to maintain her elegant demeanor, it would have been very difficult for her to control herself. A rising star in the education world of Huaqing only wanted to be a security guard at a school. Isn't this contrast a bit too strong? I used to like to educate people, but now I only want to protect people. Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga and said with an unprecedentedly serious tone. "Later on, I realized that being alive is the most important thing. I hope that the people I care about won't come to any harm. Doing this is too tiring." "It's tiring if I don't do this," Fang Yin said. "I didn't do this before. That's why I'm so tired now." Lu Chaoga sighed softly and said, "What can I help you with?" "Help me be Chaoyan," Fang Yin said. "I'll need money in the future, a lot of money. I need resources, all kinds of resources. I don't just want a person to be strong. I need a family to be strong. Only then will I be able to confront those schemers hiding behind the scenes. Only then will I be able to chop off their dirty hands and pierce their dirty hearts." Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "You were mourning in Swallow Dock for 3 years, and I didn't visit you for 3 years. I spent all my time and energy on the development of Chaoyan technology. I knew that this day would come, and I hope that when you come out, Chaoyan technology can be your strongest support. I think that Miss Qin also thinks so." After Fang Yixing's funeral, Qin Yiqian immediately left. She became her mother's assistant and one of the decision-makers of the Qin family's business. Her eyes were always on Chaoyan technology, and she used the Qin family's resources and connections to protect Chaoyan's development. If it weren't for Qin Yiqian's support, if it weren't for the Qin family support, Chaoyan technology, which was as fragile as a baby and had infinite potential, would have long been torn into pieces and swallowed by those ambitious people. It could be said that if it weren't for Lu Chaoga standing in the light to attract the gunfire, if it weren't for Qin Yiqian standing in the back to cast thunder, the 2 small flames of Chaoyan technology would have long been extinguished by others. "I owe you too much," Fang Yin said in a deep voice. He didn't say thank you, because that word was too weak to express his feelings at this moment. Lu Chaoga smiled silently and began to clean up the dishes. She said, "Go watch TV for a while, and live here with me from now on." Fang Yin felt restless. He felt that he was in a bad mood right now, and it wasn't appropriate to think about the matters between a man and a woman. Moreover, he and Lu Chaoga still lacked some emotional seasoning. He felt that he wasn't ready yet. If they slept together, it wouldn't be appropriate, right? Fang Yin was in a dilemma. He didn't know what reason he should use to refuse Lu Chaoga's invitation without hurting a woman's proud self-esteem. Because he hadn't spoken much in the past 3 years, he felt that his language skills had deteriorated seriously. I've already cleaned up the room for you. Lu Chaogo walked into the kitchen with the bowls and chopsticks. Only then did Fong Yin realize that he was thinking too much. Chapter 444. You couldn't blame Fong Yin for overthinking it. Didn't this kind of plot appear in many novels and movies? When his parents were killed or his brothers died tragically, the male protagonist was in so much pain that he wanted to drown his sorrows in alcohol, while the female protagonist stayed by his side. When the male protagonist was drunk or pretended to be drunk, the two of them would ignite their passion and do everything that they could. Their bodies would feel so comfortable that they felt like they were on cloud 9. The next day, the female protagonist was the first to wake up. She looked at the male protagonist who was sleeping soundly next to her with a pitiful face. Thinking about his hard work last night, she got up to make a hearty breakfast and left. The male protagonist was at a loss when he woke up. Soon, he saw the steaming breakfast on the table and the note written in a beautiful handwriting. I did it voluntarily. I don't blame you. You're the longest. Fighting. Fong Yin thought that Lu Chaogo was also such a woman, which scared him. But then he thought that Lu Chaogo was not such a woman, which made him angry again. Did she still have the spirit of dedication? Did she still have the spirit of loyalty? Lu Chaogo was indeed prepared. She arranged Fong Yan's room on the second floor next to her bedroom. They were separated by a wall, but it was two different worlds. Lu Chaoga took Fong Yin into the room and said, "You will live here in the future. It is safe and you can take care of each other. I know you like reading, so I put a bookshelf at the head of the bed. There are a few books that I chose for you. If you have any books that you want to read, you can also make a list for me. This is the washing area, and this is the shower area. The bathtub has a massage function. If you're tired, you can lie in it and rest for a while. The towel is in the cabinet and will be changed every day. You can throw it into the cage after you use it. Someone will come to wash it the next day." Lu Chaoga pushed open the wardrobe. It was full of clothes. There are pajamas and formal attire for going out in here. I know you have the habit of doing morning exercises, so I specially prepared a few sets of training clothes for you. They're made of fine cotton and should be very comfortable. If there's a brand you like, you can tell me, and I'll get someone to buy it for you. Lu Chaogo pulled Fong Yin out of the room's balcony and pointed to the open lawn in the backyard, saying, "You can practice there. There are high walls on 3 sides, so no one will disturb you." When he bought the house, he specially chose this house for safety reasons. Easy to defend and alert. Lu Chaoga had prepared everything he needed. Fong Yin looked at Lu Chaoga and praised, "You're getting better at taking care of people." Lu Chaoga chuckled and said, "After living alone for a long time, one has to learn some special skills. Let me know if you need anything. You must be tired today. Have a good rest." Lu Chaoga said goodbye to Fong Yin, then turned around and walked outside. When she went out, she didn't forget to close the door for Fong Yin. Fong Yin looked at the layout of the room and stood on the balcony to observe the surroundings for a while. Then he closed the curtains, filled the bathtub with water, took off his clothes, and lay down. He didn't use the massage function of the bathtub. He soaked his whole body in the warm water, including his head. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half an hour passed, and his head didn't come out. He didn't even expose his mouth to breathe fresh air. Except for a few bubbles on the surface of the water, there was no movement in the bathtub. It should be known that the human body couldn't breathe in water. Without fresh oxygen, it was difficult for the human body to live in water for a long time. Fong Yin actually stayed in the water for half an hour, which was difficult even for the most powerful turtle breathing technique. Unless the person was already dead. Phew! Water splashed everywhere. Fong Yin suddenly sat up from the warm water. He raised his head to look at the time on the wall. This time, he stayed in the water for 36 minutes. Of course, Fong Yin didn't die. He entered the water in a stagnant state. He didn't need to breathe, and his lungs didn't need fresh oxygen. He used the Tai Chi heart to circulate his whole body, using the power of Tai Chi to maintain the operation of his body's organs, so that his body could fuse with the warm water. The bubbles that occasionally came out were the waste gas released by the Tai Chi heart, and he only needed the most primitive breath before he entered the bathtub to continue. It was like how a normal person needed a piece of bread for a meal. If they didn't eat for 7 days, they would starve to death. However, Fong Yin could only need 1/10 of a piece of bread for each meal. He could divide this piece of bread into 10 pieces to sustain his life. Using the same principle, he could hold the fresh air in his mouth and then divide it countless times, so that his body could maintain its vitality under the most extreme conditions. This was the existence of another ultimate state of the Tai Chi heart, fake death. Because Fong Yixing really died, he comprehended this fake death state during his 3 years of mourning. The Tai Chi heart was your sincerity. If your mood was happy, it will be happy too. Thy heart is sorrowful, and it is sorrowful. For a long time, Fong Yan's heart was like dead ashes. Lu Chaoga returned to her room and sat on the sofa in a daze for a while. Then, she opened the bathtub and began to fill it with water. She also poured a box of rose petals into the bathtub. She tied up her hair and wrapped it in a white shower cap. She took off her coat and removed the black bra that bound her chest. Then, 2 extremely plump, snow-white jade rabbits jumped out. Lu Chaoga stood in front of the mirror. The 2 jade rabbits trembled and swayed in the mirror, as if they were unwilling to live on a woman's body for a long time and wanted to escape. She had a beautiful face and a pair of intelligent eyes. There was not a single blemish on her pink and white skin, not even a pimple that grew because of excessive heat. Her breasts were tall and straight, her waist was slender, and her round and slender thighs could instantly capture the eyes of any man. She used her hands to gently hold up the 2 fat rabbits. Only then did they lie down on her palms. Lu Chaoga looked at herself in the mirror and sighed softly. She reached out and tore off her purple lace underwear, then stepped into the bathtub with her long legs. She had just laid down in the bathtub and was about to enjoy the massage of the bathtub's lover's hands, when the smartphone hanging by the side of the bathtub suddenly rang. Lu Chaoga didn't get up. She only called out, "Chao Yin," and the phone was automatically connected. "Boss, Dr. Lin Jibin from GS Studio encountered an accident. His car crashed into the railing on the Long Valley Bridge. His car was destroyed, and he died." Lu Chaoga was silent for a long time, then said, "I got it." After hanging up the phone, Lu Chaoga closed her eyes tiredly. Those people hadn't given up yet. This kind of thing often happened. If it weren't for the powerful human resources provided by the Qin family, as well as the famous school cooperation plan that Chaoyan carried out later, Chaoyan's underground research institute would probably have no researchers available now. What was the most important thing for a high-tech research company? Talent. There was no doubt that their opponent was very good at killing. White shirt and black shoes, handsome face and starry eyes. Holding a cup of tea, he had a natural and unworldly aura. Fong Yin sat quietly in the security booth and drank tea. Baldy felt uncomfortable standing next to him. Seeing that the 2 subordinates beside him kept signaling him with their eyes, Baldy had to stand up and speak. He looked at Fong Yin with a flattering smile and said, "Mr. Fong, let's discuss something. Why don't you take a walk around the campus? Go to the martial arts club to teach the students martial arts. Go to the tea ceremony club to drink a cup of new tea made by the children, where you can go home and sleep for a while. There's nothing much here. Even if something happens, us brothers can help you. Is that okay?" Fong Yin looked up at Baldy and said, "You want to kick me out?" No. Baldy waved his hand repeatedly. The few hairs on his head were almost scared off. "How can we kick you out? We can't kick you out of anyone else. I'm just worried that you'll be tired." "I'm not tired," Fong Yin said. "Hee, as long as you're not tired. As long as you're not tired." Baldy giggled, but he was already crying in his heart. Who was Fong Yin? He was the man of Lu Chaoga, the director of Rosefinch Secondary School. With such a great god guarding the security booth, the colleagues in the security office all had difficulty breathing. In the past, when they were on duty, they talked and laughed, bragged, and smoked cigarettes. Their days were as carefree as a mortal's. With Fong Yin sitting like this, they didn't dare to talk, brag, smoke, and even laugh. It was only a bitter smile. As the new head of Rosefinch Secondary Security Office, Baldy had to think about his subordinates. If the subordinates' days were not happy, as the boss, he would also lose face, right? But why was it so hard to say this? Baldy waved his hand at his subordinates, who were observing the wind direction, indicating that he couldn't do it. He didn't have the ability or the courage to ask Fong Yin to leave. The old fox, Zheng Chong, patted Baldy and whispered in Baldy's ear, "You're our head, the highest official in our security office. Whether he's a prince or a prince, when he comes to our security office, he has to listen to you. Would he dare to not listen to what you tell him to do?" Baldy thought about it and agreed. He was the head of the security office. How could he let Fong Yin suppress his brilliant power? So, Baldy straightened his back and walked in front of Fong Yin with a serious expression, saying, "Fong Yin, go to the Sparrow River Tea House to rest." After thinking for a while, he added majestically, "This is an order." Baldy felt that he had to stand up. If a tiger doesn't show its might, do you think I'm Hello Kitty? Chapter 445. There was a tea house called the Sparrow River Tea House by the river near the Sparrow Bridge. Some teachers who liked this style liked to drink a cup of tea and look at the river view when they didn't have class. Students with good family backgrounds also liked to come here to lament the passing of time. Maybe they would be inspired and come up with a good poem or essay. Fong Yin was stunned for a moment. He put down the teacup in his hand and said, "There's no need to rest. I'll go to the back garden." Fong Yin walked out of the security booth and headed to the back garden of the school. That was the student dormitory area. Some naughty students would smoke, play cards, and even get into fights there. It had always been the focus of the security office. If boys or girls sneaked into the girls' dormitory, it would be an even bigger problem. This was something that the school would not allow. He really left? Baldy stared at Fong Yin's back. His face was full of shock and disbelief. He was just saying it. Why did Fong Yin really listen to him? Could it be that, as the leader, he was really a deterrent? He really left. Zheng Chong also found this behavior hard to understand. Why didn't he get angry? Baldy kicked Zheng Chong's butt and scolded, "Brat, are you waiting for him to get angry at me? If he yells at me, you guys won't have a good time either." He wouldn't dare. Zheng Chong patted his chest to show his loyalty. "If he dares to get angry at you, I'll be the first to fight him." Phew, this feels good. You guys don't know that I was about to go crazy from holding back. Exactly. My smoking addiction is acting up. I want to find a place to smoke, but I don't even dare to. You're still thinking about smoking? I don't even dare to speak. He's sitting there with a teacup like he's my grandfather. I have to report to him when I go to the toilet. I'm afraid he'll think I'm slacking off and going somewhere to sleep. Everyone complained to Baldy. Because Fong Yin was too imposing, it was really painful for them to be next to him. He took the initiative to patrol the back garden this year. What about tomorrow? What about the day after tomorrow? Zheng Chong asked the crux of the problem. We can't send him to the back garden every day, can we? Exactly. If he doesn't leave, will we still have a good life in the future? Division Chief, why don't you talk to him and ask him to retract his divine ability? A pretty boy. Why did he become a security guard instead of good teacher? How good would it be to be a teacher? The salary is high, the benefits are good, and I can rest for 4 months a year. If it weren't for the fact that I don't have a diploma, I would also want to be a teacher. Baldy was also very worried about this problem. Others were afraid of Fong Yin, but he was also afraid of Fong Yin. However, he still comforted his subordinates and said, "You don't have to worry about this problem." What kind of person was he? How could he really be a security guard like us brothers for a lifetime? He was a dragon among men, a man that even Chairman Liu and Headmaster Zhong valued. Don't worry, he won't be able to work for long. Maybe he'll leave in a few days. Everyone felt that what Baldy said made sense. How could a young hero like Fong Yin be a security guard for the rest of his life? With this thought, everyone's mood immediately became happy. Baldy remembered how he looked in front of Fong Yin just now, and he was secretly happy. He waved his hand and said, "Brothers, after work, we'll have little sheep hot pot at the entrance, my treat." "Long live the division chief." Everyone shouted. Rosefinch Secondary. Fong Yin used to be very familiar with this school, but now he felt a bit unfamiliar when he walked there. The previous basketball court had been heavily renovated, and the east and west courts were combined into one, turning it into a dedicated basketball area. The embroidered chairs on the football field had been removed and replaced with soft and elastic cement. The students sat directly on the concrete floor to watch the game, and no longer prepared chairs. Also, the previous club's activity venues were all scattered. For example, the literature club was in a lecture hall in the teaching building, the English corner was next to the fountain, and they played pure English movies. There was also the Taekwondo club and the tea ceremony club, which were relatively independent. Now the school specially allocated a piece of land to build a building named Rosefinch Building, which was used as a library and for various club activities. Every society had a fixed venue for their activities. Even the tree-lined path under Fong Yan's feet, which he had walked hundreds of times before, had changed. The short grass had grown taller, the railings on both sides had been strengthened, and a strong parasol tree seemed to have aged a bit. A lot of things could happen in 3 years. He had already spent 3 years reflecting, so Flower City would be a new beginning for him. Watching, this was the origin of everything, and also the origin of the tragedy. If he hadn't come to Huaqing, if he hadn't encountered those things, if he had just been a quiet teacher, if that was the case, wouldn't his father not have died in battle? A strong sense of guilt rushed over him like a tidal wave, surging violently. It almost overturned the dam of one's mind. "Come, all of you." Fong Yin clenched his fist and said. His eyes were filled with blood, and it looked like a pair of black pupils were soaked in blood. His eyes were like a wolf's or a dog's, like a demon that crawled out of hell. "Let's fight to the death again." Affected by his ruthlessness, the Taiji heart spun wildly, and the Taiji domain naturally unfolded. The Taiji heart released energy, sweeping up the withered leaves on the ground. Countless leaves were like countless butterflies. They flew up and down, gathering in the eye of the storm. Finally, they formed a ring, like a dragon of withered leaves that had a life of its own. The dragon of leaves flew around Fong Yan's body, baring its fangs and claws, as if it wanted to swallow the man in front of it in one bite. Huff! Fong Yan used the clear heart chant to forcefully suppress the ruthlessness in his heart. Bang! The dragon of leaves exploded, and the ground was smashed. The fallen leaves scattered in all directions, rustling in the wind. Fong Yin let out a long sigh of relief. The ruthlessness in his body was gathering more and more, becoming heavier and heavier. This wasn't a good sign. Even the pure and untainted Taiji heart began to feel uncontrollably collapsing when it was tainted by this. Fong Yin was very worried. He was worried that one day the Taiji heart would no longer be under his control. In other words, the Taiji heart would only start spinning when he used violence or was in a ruthless mood. If that was the case, wouldn't he become a monster? "Don't worry," Fong Yin said to himself. "They will come. They will definitely come. He can feel their presence." Fong Yin seriously thought about it and walked towards his original destination. In the depths of the flowering shrubs, a beautiful girl watched the scene unfold in front of her with wide eyes. She walked to the place where Fong Yin was standing and looked at the withered leaves that had been blown into tiny pieces, her eyes full of doubt and curiosity. "What kind of man is he?" the girl muttered to herself. 3 years ago, Fong Yin was an influential figure in Rosefinch Secondary. 3 years later, batch after batch of Rosefinch's students had left, and there were only a few students who knew him. It was currently the students' lunch break, and class would start in half an hour. The students weren't sleepy and were gathered in groups of 3 to 5, chatting noisily. There were also some new students who had brought back their military training uniforms to try on. They would be participating in the new military training starting tomorrow. Fong Yin, who was wearing a white shirt, walked in the middle of the crowd and naturally attracted the attention of countless students. Some people even pointed at him, feeling that he was a very strange person. A tall boy was handing out cigarettes to the students around him. When Fong Yin saw him, he walked over and said, I don't object to you smoking, because I know I can't stop you from smoking. But can you change to an empty place? You're standing at the door of the dormitory. It's very easy to cause a fire. The tall boy lit up the cigarette in his hand, put it in his mouth, and took a puff. He sneered and said, "Who are you? Who do you think you are?" Fong Yin smiled, and the cigarette in the tall boy's mouth was in Fong Yan's hand. The tall boy didn't see Fong Yan's movements clearly, and he didn't even notice that Fong Yan had made a move. But how did the cigarette end up in Fong Yan's hand? The tall boy reached out to grab it. He had already set his eyes on Fong Yan's arm, but when his hand reached out, he missed. He tried again, but he missed again. Young people tended to be irritable. He was ashamed and annoyed, and he reached out to hit Fong Yan's chest. Fong Yan's palm pulled back, and the fist that the tall boy reached out was hit back. His arm hung down, and his palm kept shaking. With a light touch from Fong Yan, his fist became red and swollen. The tall boy didn't dare to move again. He just looked at Fong Yan with fear in his eyes, who was smiling gently. Fong Yan's 2 fingers rubbed gently, and the burning cigarette was extinguished. He flicked his finger, and the cigarette but flew into the trash not far away. Ignoring the boys who looked at him in surprise, Fong Yan said with a smile, "This is the first time. What about next time?" A boy asked recklessly. "There is no next time," Fong Yan said in a stern tone. Some people said that young people should be allowed to make mistakes. In the past, Fong Yan also thought so. However, some mistakes could only be made once in a lifetime. Just once, it was already painful to the bone. When Fong Yan was patrolling the backyard, Zheng Chong from the security office ran over with sweat on his head. "Fong, Mr. Fong," Zheng Chong shouted while panting. "Those punks are here. They came to trouble Director Kai." Fong Yan frowned and said, "I'll go take a look." Fong Yan followed behind Zheng Chong. When the two of them rushed back to the security booth at the school gate, they found a group of people making trouble at the gate. Baldy and another security guard on duty blocked the gate with their bodies, not letting these ferocious guys step into the school gate. Fong Yan looked at the crowd opposite and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He actually found an acquaintance. Chapter 446. Brother Yellowhair, it's not that I want to trouble you. It's the people from Rosefinch Secondary Security Office who are bullying us too much. The road is facing the sky. We each walk our own path. We weren't even in their way. We were just looking in from the school's entrance, and they attacked us. Is there still any law? The man with the earring stood next to a man with a head full of blonde hair and said indignantly, after being bullied by Fong Yan yesterday, he had been thinking of getting back at them. As a gangster, he was most afraid of losing face. If he lost face, how could he lead his underlings? Therefore, he asked his big brother to help him take revenge. Brother Xiao Xing is right. They bullied Brother Xiao Xing like this. Aren't they purposely making Brother Yellowhair lose face? On this street, who dares to make Brother Yellowhair lose face? On Rosefinch Avenue, Brother Yellowhair is invincible. Brother Yellowhair, there's a strange person over there. That guy's a bit strange. He seems to know some kung fu. Little Yellowhair held a cigarette in his hand, proudly blowing out smoke bubbles one after another, and said with a blank expression, "Let's talk things out. How can we beat people up? This is a society with the law. Beating people up is against the law. I want to see who dares to hurt people at the school gate. You all went to the hospital yesterday, right? Did you bring the report? We have no other intentions today, just to talk to them about the issue of apology and compensation. Yes, yes, yes." Brother Xiao Xing nodded repeatedly. "Let's make him kneel down and apologize. Then the injured brothers will each pay 100,000. We can't be too greedy." There were a lot of punks today. There were about a dozen people gathered behind a blonde man. And they were not here to cause trouble, but to negotiate. They said that the security guard from Rosefinch Secondary Security Office injured a few good youths who passed by the school gate. One of them hurt his spine, and another had his nose broken. They even brought the hospital report, saying that if the school didn't give them an explanation, they would call the police and the media to report the school's violent behavior. The other party had the advantage in numbers, and they were reasonable, because the people were indeed injured by the security guards. At least for now. They came to Xing Shui angrily to denounce him. If he didn't handle it well, and the matter was brought to Principal Zhong Dei, he was afraid that Principal Zhong would dismiss him, the newly appointed security captain. He was not a philanthropist who would show mercy just because he had a little relationship with Fang Yan. Zhong Dei was strict in his studies and did not care about personal relationships. He was famous for being an iron-fisted principal. Baldy and another security officer stood in front of the gangsters, refusing to budge an inch. Baldy's expression was cold. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "All of you, leave immediately. Otherwise, I'll call the police to arrest you. This is a school, a place to teach and educate people. If you rascals dare to disturb the students' studies, it's not too much to put you in jail for a few years." The yellow-haired man threw the cigarette, but on the ground, and stamped it out. Xiaoxing quickly took out a tissue from his pocket and squatted on the ground to pick up the cigarette butt and wrap it up. He knew Brother Yellowhair's temper. He didn't like people spitting and littering everywhere. He was a successful, high-quality man who cared a lot about the public environment. Xiaoxing put the tissue with the cigarette, but in his hand into the trash can next to him. Then, he returned to stand beside the yellow-haired man. The yellow-haired man looked at Baldy and smiled lightly. He said, "Of course, we know that the school is a place to teach and educate people. But what's the purpose of letting students learn knowledge? It's to let students understand that if you hit someone, you're being unreasonable. Now, we're here with the injured to ask you for an explanation. It's a matter of course. Even the law has to protect us. Which law says that ordinary people can't go to the school gate to ask for an explanation? You're quibbling. They were the ones who blocked the school gate to cause trouble. Did they hit anyone? No, I didn't. Did they push you? Or did they attack you in some other way? They call me Baldy," Baldy said righteously. "They insulted me verbally." The yellow-haired man glanced at Baldy's bald head and said, "They said you're Baldy. This is indeed their fault. Just because they insulted you verbally, you attacked and injured them? Is this the logic of how you deal with things? Is this the outstanding result of Rosefinch secondary education?" Baldy's mouth opened, but he didn't know how to refute this question. He wanted to say that he didn't hit them, but now Fang Yin was his direct subordinate and an employee of their security office. He finally understood why Fang Yin didn't want to be a good teacher, but came to the security office. He came to avoid trouble and let him be the scapegoat. Right? Brother Yellowhair, they're here. It's that guy. It's the guy in the white robe who hurt us. A hooligan with acne on his face pointed to the distance and shouted excitedly. In the direction he pointed, Fang Yin followed Zheng Chong and slowly walked over. Brother Xiaoxing's face was flushed, and he seemed to be in a state of extreme excitement and madness. The guy who beat him up, the bastard who tied him up with a tie and hung him on a tree trunk. This scumbag, devil, and cancer society was about to receive his overdue justice. He would pay the punishment of losing his dignity and money. He deserved to die. Brother Xiaoxing felt that he had been invincible since he started his career. Didn't the hooligans or students of Vermilion Bird Street respectfully call him Brother Xiaoxing when they saw him? Yesterday was the lowest point of his life. It was the most shameful day of his life. Now, he was going to climb up from that low point. He wanted to revive the glory of the name Brother Xiaoxing, Brother Yellowhair. It's the kid in the white robe. Today, you have to help us brothers and cripple that kid. Otherwise, we won't have the face to mingle in the underworld anymore. Look at that arrogant, despotic, and insufferably proud look on his face. Just looking at him makes people feel unhappy. Who does he think he is? He's just a security guard, but he's even more arrogant than Brother Yellowhair. You mean him? Yellowhair finally saw Fang Yan's face clearly. Although they haven't seen each other for 3 years, and his temperament had changed a lot, but wasn't this the Fang Yan that they wanted to bully, but were bullied instead? Yes, it's him. Brother Xiaoxing sneered. I'll recognize him even if he turns into ashes. Ha! Yellowhair punched Brother Xiaoxing's face. He was extremely ruthless. Brother Xiaoxing's mouth was cracked, and blood quickly dyed his chin red. A purple-red fist mark appeared on his white and tender face. Before Brother Shaoxing could react, Yellow Hair kicked him in the stomach again. Brother Shaoxing's body stepped back and fell to the ground. Brother Yellow Hair. A group of people looked at Yellow Hair dumbfoundedly. They didn't understand how things developed into this situation. The silly guy with a face full of acne opened his mouth and asked in a low voice, "Brother Yellow Hair, did you hit the wrong person? Didn't they come to the security office of Rosefinch Secondary to find trouble with the security guards who hit people? Why did the boss hit his own people now? It's him." Yellow Hair gritted his teeth and scolded. "These bastards, they're just pushing me into the fire pit." Yellow Hair trotted to Fong Yin, bowed to greet Fong Yin, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fong, long time no see. Do you remember me? I'm Yellow Hair, the one who had some misunderstandings with you before. Do you remember me?" Fong Yin looked at him in a trance and didn't answer his question. Of course, he knew this Yellow Hair. The incident with Brother Wolf behind him was one of the crises he encountered when he first entered Rosefinch 3 years ago. Because of the media's attention, he was almost hyped up as a perverted teacher who had an abnormal relationship with a female student. Although he quickly solved the matter with a thunderous method, he was still chased out of his rented house by his sister Lee, who was worried about her daughter's puppy love. After that, he moved into Lu Chaoga's Rosefinch house and fought with waves of evil forces. In the end, his father, Fong Yixing, died in battle at the entrance of Swallow Dock. It could be said that the Brother Wolf incident was a watershed in his life. At that time, he was high-spirited, laughing and scolding. Other than feeling that there was a woman who was very annoying, he felt that the sky was blue and the water was clear. Even Baldy's bald head looked ugly and cute. How depressed and heavy was his mood now. After not seeing each other for 3 years, he really missed his life at that time. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back. Seeing that Fong Yin didn't respond, Yellow Hair thought that Fong Yin didn't remember who he was. He introduced himself even more diligently and said, "At that time, my face was smeared with chicken blood, and I even held up a banner at the school gate to denounce you. Oh yes, I wrote kill and taste life. You were very angry and said that I wrote taste wrong and added a side at the side. Do you remember now?" Fong Yin finally pulled himself out of his memories. Looking at Yellow Hair's expectant face, he nodded and said, "I remember you." Yellow Hair was so emotional that he was about to cry. With red eyes, he said, "After that incident, I realized that being uneducated is indeed a very shameful thing. After that, I self-studied the law course at the Radio and Television University. I am now a university graduate. Give me another 2 years, and I will be able to get my lawyer's license. Mr. Fong, you are my first teacher and second parent." Chapter 447. Fong Yin looked at the excited yellow-haired man and asked with a smile, "Did you self-study the law course of TVU?" "Yes." The yellow-haired man nodded proudly. From a hooligan who had tasted blood for blood to a knowledgeable and cultured night school graduate, it could indeed be said to be a huge change of being reborn. "You can become a lawyer in 2 years?" "Yes. I've been preparing for a long time. I'm confident that I can get a lawyer's license in 2 years." The yellow-haired man was even more proud. Fong Yan's eyes became sharp, as if he wanted to see through the yellow-haired man's internal organs and tear off his clothes and flesh. He said with a slightly sarcastic tone, "So, are you trying to tell me that you've become a knowledgeable and cultured hooligan?" The yellow-haired man's face turned red, and he couldn't speak for a long time. 3 years ago, when I first saw you, you followed a bad guy to touch a girl's, but in a small bar. The second time I saw you, you were lying in front of the school gate with blood all over your face. This is the 3rd time we met, right? You came to the school gate with a group of you from 3 years ago. Of course, you're knowledgeable and cultured now, and you're studying law. Some of the laws are even clearer than I am. In this field, you can be my teacher. You won't say that you're hooligans who caused trouble and harassed the girls in the school. You made them into victims. You're not here to block the school. You said you're here to negotiate and find justice. You used to hate the media, but now you know how to use the media. You used to be afraid of the police, but now you know how to use the police to protect you. You proudly told me that you self-studied the TVU course, and you said that you can get a lawyer's license in 2 years. You've indeed improved, and you've grown to a level that I'm impressed with. What do you want me to say to you? To encourage you to achieve anything if you have a will? To praise you for turning over a new leaf? Mr. Fong, I didn't mean that. The yellow-haired man was so ashamed that he couldn't speak. He really hoped that Fong Yin could see his growth, and he was also eager for Fong Yin to praise him. Even if she patted him on the shoulder, it gave him the strength to move forward. He had experienced too many things in the past few years. He had fought and injured people, eaten and dashed, went to the police station, patted his wife, and touched a little girl's butt. However, those past events were like a wonderful popcorn movie, burning in the treasure house of life. Not a single trace was left. That time, he became Brother Wolf's chosen puppet. His face was covered in blood as he lay on the stretcher. Fong Yin angrily pulled him up and used his finger to smear the blood on his face. Then, Fong Yin seriously added a side to the word taste. That scene replayed in his mind countless times, crashing into his soul again and again. The appearance of Fong Yin completely subverted his previous worldview. Before meeting Fong Yin, he thought that Brother Wolf's tattoo of a wolf's head was cool. He thought that his companion Zhang Quandan's lip stud was cool. He thought that little wolfhound's ability to drink 12 bottles of beer in one breath was cool. He thought that little pretty boy's ability to rely on his Lu Dahua appearance to be taken care of by all kinds of rich women was cool. Of course, until now, he still thought that little pretty boy was cool. He was born with skills that made people envious. However, after getting to know Fong Yin, he felt that Fong Yin was cool when he grabbed the glass bottle in his hand and broke it piece by piece. He was cool when he rushed up and lifted Brother Wolf's body. He was cool when he faced the gangsters and the media. He was cool when he used his finger to smear the blood on his face. Most importantly, he did not have Lu Dahua's face, but many young and beautiful girls liked him. It was as if a candle had suddenly appeared in a dark room, and Fong Yin was the one who had brought the candle to her. He felt that he should change and become a knowledgeable and charming man. So he began to study hard and became the most outstanding graduate of the TV University that year. He liked the law and began to strive for a lawyer's license. All of this stemmed from the influence of the man in front of him. He came to Rosefinch Secondary to look for Fong Yin several times, but he was disappointed every time. Today, he was surprised to meet him, but it was in such an awkward situation. Fong Yin looked at the yellow-haired man and said, "If you study hard day and night just to become a cultured hooligan, if you work hard to get a lawyer's license just to defend yourself and your companion's innocence, then I regret reminding you in the first place. I regret teaching you how to arm yourself with knowledge. It's better to let you taste blood. It's also less destructive to society." The yellow-haired man respectfully bowed to Fong Yin and said, "Mr. Fong, I know I was wrong. I relied on what I learned and became arrogant and complacent. I felt that I had a few drops of ink in my stomach, so I wanted to help my brothers to vent their anger. There was a problem with my mentality, and there was also a problem with my mind. I didn't use what I learned where it should be used. I'm sorry for your education." Fong Yin's expression softened a little, looked at the yellow-haired man and asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Sanxian," the yellow-haired man said embarrassedly. He also felt that his name was really not presentable. "My surname is Hai. My parents used to sell seafood at the ferry, so they named me Sanxian." "Sanxian, don't feel ashamed of your name." Fong Yin patted him on the shoulder and said, "You should work hard to make your parents proud of your name." Sanxian nodded and said, "My parents are already very proud of me. They didn't let me go home a few years ago, but now they call me several times a month and ask me to go home when I have time. They will be even prouder in the future." Fong Yin smiled and turned his eyes to Xiaoxing and the group of minions he brought with him. Where Fong Yan's gaze landed, everyone took a step back in unison. How could they dare to go against a man that even their boss had to bow down to? Sanxian's face was extremely embarrassed. He took the initiative to explain to Fong Yin, "Mr. Fong, This matter is indeed our fault. It's up to you to punish or punish us. If it wasn't me you met today, but anyone else in the security office, what would you do? Seek justice. San Xian said frankly. How do we seek justice? Ask them to apologize to the injured and pay for medical expenses. This is the standard method of our brothers in the underworld. San Xian said. Otherwise, make the matter bigger. Most schools don't want negative news to be reported by the media. You guys are good at scheming. Fang Yin said with a smile. I won't beat you or punish you. I'll let you remember this. Mr. Fang, what do you mean? San Xian had a bad feeling in his heart. He respected Fang Yin, but he was more afraid of Fang Yin. This fear came from the bottom of his heart. It was as if this man could turn into a monster by opening his mouth or waving his hand. Dang, dang, dang. The school bell rang. There was a brief silence. Then the whole ground began to shake. The clamor, the sound of footsteps, and the students rushing out of the classrooms were like a flock of sheep spreading around the school before gathering at the school gate. When they passed by the school gate, they found a strange and eerie scene. More than 10 men lined up in 2 neat lines. They stood on both sides of the gate of Rosefinch Secondary, as if they were greeting guests at the entrance of a restaurant. Some of these men had terrifying tattoos, some wore cheap and dense ear studs, and some had colorful, non-mainstream hairstyles. These men looked like delinquents at first glance, but they were doing something that did not match their image at all. It's been hard on you. Please go home safely. They bowed deeply to the students and shouted together. It's been hard on you. Please go home safely. They stood up and performed the same etiquette to the next group of students. It was the peak time for students to enter and leave the school. Just as they raised their bodies, they had to lower their heads again to remind the students who passed by them to go home safely. Oh my God, isn't that the ear stud guy Xiao Xing? He's amazing. I heard he has a lot of underlings. That big fatso, he asked me for 100 yuan and hasn't returned it to me yet. What's his name again? The one with the scorpion tattoo on his neck is Brother Scorpion. I heard he's a famous gangster in this area. No one dares to mess with him. At that time, the owner of the students' cafeteria quarreled with him, and he brought his men to smash the restaurant. The students were stunned by this scene. These hooligans were people they could not afford to provoke in the past. Now, they were bowing respectfully to them and asking them to go home safely in a considerate manner. Did the big bad wolf eat grass now? Many students took out their phones from their pockets in surprise to record this strange scene. It was rare to see such a lively scene. Fang Yin sat in the security booth and drank tea. Baldy and the others stood at the door with their heads held high. They stared at the gangsters with majestic and disdainful eyes. They tried very hard to express to the students that the reason why these gangsters were so docile and did such unreasonable things was because they were conquered by our domineering aura. Baldy's face was full of pride and glory. The few strands of hair on his head were fluttering in the autumn wind, very silly and very unruly. Chapter 448. Director, how do you feel? Zheng Chang approached Baldy and asked in a low voice. I'm all right, Baldy said with a dignified face, looking like a leader. If they didn't have some ability, how could they enter our Rosefinch secondary security office? Do you think anyone can enter our security office? It's high as a 9-story building, Zheng Chang said with a smile. Those hoodlums care about their reputation the most. They come to our school all day to show off. Don't they want people to think they're powerful? Today, they did something like this and lost so much face. Let's see if they still have the face to wander on this street in the future. I'm afraid they'll hide far away when they see our school's students. Evil never triumphs over good. Even if Fang Yin didn't do this, I would still find a chance to teach them a lesson, Baldy said righteously. The Baldy said with a righteous air, after this incident, if they know their mistakes and can correct themselves, it can be considered a virtuous deed. Although Mr. Fang isn't a teacher now, he's still doing the work of educating people. San Xian stood next to Fang Yin and asked in a low voice, Mr. Fang, I want to ask you a favor. What is it? Fang Yin asked without turning his head. He was focused on drinking tea. drinking the big leaf tea that Baldy gave him. The tea was slightly astringent, just like his current mood. Can you be my teacher? If there's anything I don't understand, can you give me some pointers? San Xian asked nervously. He was very nervous. Sure, Fang Yin said. San Xian didn't expect Fang Yin to agree so easily. After a while, he said excitedly, Mr. Fang, you'll be my teacher from now on. I'll definitely work hard and won't let you down. You're not learning for me. You're learning for yourself, Fang Yin said. You'll be a hoodlum for the rest of your life. It has nothing to do with me. But I'm still looking forward to you becoming more outstanding and using your knowledge in more important places. Got it, San Xian said, feeling enlightened. Fang Yin pointed to the hooligans who were standing at the school gate pretending to welcome guests and said, Take them home. Don't come to the school gate to make a fool of yourself again. This is a school, a place for students to learn. If I see them causing trouble here again, I'll hang them on a tree and make them shout these 2 lines at the students. I won't. They won't come again. I won't dare to come again, San Xian promised before leaving with his men. Dong, dong, dong. Someone gently knocked on the window of the security booth. Fang Yin raised his head and looked over. The beautiful girl that he had once met was standing at the window and looking at him with a smile. What's the matter? Fang Yin asked curiously. Are you the school's security guard? The girl asked in a crisp voice. Fang Yin nodded and said, Yes. The girl looked at Fang Yin up and down, then pointed at the green security uniform on Baldy and said, Then why aren't you wearing a security uniform? You're lying. The girl pretended to be angry and said, How can you be a security guard? You don't look like one at all. How can a security guard look like you? I'm a security guard, Fang Yin explained. They're all standing outside, and only you're sitting in the security booth? You're the security captain? Also, you still haven't answered my question. If you're a security guard, why aren't you wearing a security uniform? Fang Yin was troubled for a while, then said in a small voice, The security uniform is too ugly. Haha, the girl laughed. I also don't think it looks good. Oh yeah, are you off work? I'll treat you to dinner, okay? Why would you treat me to dinner? Because I like you, the girl said. No need, Fang Yin refused. I already have a date. You really don't give me any face. I don't treat people so easily, the girl said coldly. What's your name? I'm a security guard. Do you know what my name is? I don't know. I clearly told you, the girl said angrily. My name is Su Chi. Do you remember it this time? I'll try my best, Fang Yin said with a serious face. He knew that this girl had a faint affection or a slight curiosity toward him, but he could only push her away, because he couldn't accommodate too many people around him. I'm a security guard. I'll try my best to remember the name of every student in the school. If I forget, please forgive me. There are too many people, and my memory isn't very good. So boring. The girl turned her head and proudly left. When most of the students had left, Baldy walked in front of Fang Yin and said, Mr. Fang, it's time to get off work. Why aren't you going back to dinner? I'm treating my colleagues to hot pot. Do you want to join us? We haven't seen each other for a few years. Let's have a drink? After a pause, he added, You can call me director at work, but after work, we'll call each other brothers. I'm a few years older than you, so I'll be your big brother. There's no need to be so distant between brothers. Fang Yin raised his wrist and looked at his watch. He knew that Lu Chaoga might have already sent a car to pick him up, so he put down the teacup in his hand and said, You guys eat. I won't be going. I'll go back now. Fang Yin and the other 2 colleagues nodded and walked toward the bus stop not far from the school gate. He had an appointment with Lu Xiaoga. Every day after work, a car would stop there to pick him up. Fang Yin walked to the bus stop, and there was indeed a large GMC limousine parked there. Before Fang Yin could walk over, a man in black pushed open the car door and jumped out. Mr. Fang, we meet again. The man in black took the initiative to greet Fang Yin. Jining. Fang Yin shook hands with the man in black. Long time no see. Mr. Fang, Miss Lu sent me to pick you up. Jining invited Fang Yin to get in the car. Fang Yin got in the car, and Jining followed closely behind. The car was spacious, and the view was excellent. Each seat was an independent airline seat, made of vanilla's superior leather, and had excellent support and comfort. At the same time, it also had electric massage heating and 360-degree rotation functions. "Do you want a drink?" Channing opened the wine cabinet in front of him, which was filled with all kinds of expensive drinks. There were a few round grooves on the wine cabinet, and 2 rows of crystal-clear, slender, round wine glasses were inverted. "No need. Thank you," Fong Yin said. "What do you want to see?" Channing asked again. The ceiling was installed with a voice-activated TV, which could watch TV programs from more than 100 countries around the world. "I want to rest for a while," Fong Yin said. "Okay, then I won't disturb you." Channing finally shut up, like the early spring awakening, urging my heart, can't wait any longer. Empty infatuation, moving people's hearts. Happy times, it won't be biased. Blissful time, it will not be partial, will be divided into 2 hearts. The independent headphone system and the car's powerful surround sound system played an old Cantonese song by a Hong Kong and Taiwanese actress. The voice was magnetic, and the singing was affectionate, making people feel faintly sad. Fong Yin looked at the scenery outside the window, thinking how beautiful it would be if time could be turned back. "Where's Chowga?" Fong Yin asked. "Miss Liu is in the office. She still has a report to do." Qin Ying answered. "She said she'll rush back to have dinner with you." Fong Yin stopped talking, and his eyes once again looked at the towering buildings outside the window and the withered old tree branches on both sides of the road. The autumn wind was cool, and the city was full of killing intent. Liu Chowga wasn't having a meeting in the office, but in a bustling supermarket. She was wearing a black professional suit tailored for her by the world's top clothing brand, Angel. On her hand was a limited edition Queen's watch produced only 99 pieces by Patek Philippe. This watch was popular all over the world because it was worn by the Queen of England. The Hermes scarf around her neck was intellectual and exquisite, and her high heels were black and shiny, spotless. Such an elegant and beautiful woman stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. She didn't fit in with the Andes around her who were carrying baskets or pushing shopping carts. Many people looked at her with eyes full of doubt or hostility, and some people even said that she was a mistress who came to buy groceries to please her sugar daddy, and so on. Her assistant quietly pushed the shopping cart behind her. In front of them, on the left and on the right, there was an inconspicuous man forming an iron triangle that surrounded her in the middle, so that they could get close to her in the shortest time possible in the event of an accident. Liu Chowga didn't care about her surroundings, and she didn't care about the gossip floating in her ears. The sad experience when she was young had long made her heart as strong as the toughest diamond. She held a small piece of paper in her hand and was carefully studying the scribbled words on it. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. He doesn't like to eat too sweet food, but scrambled eggs with tomatoes is an exception. Broccoli gravy soup. He drank 2 bowls yesterday, and there's no broccoli at home, so we need to replenish some stock. And fish. He ate some of every kind of fish, so which kind of fish does he like? Then let's just buy some of each kind. Liu Chowga kept stuffing the shopping cart with the fresh ingredients she had bought, and the shopping cart was already piled up like a small mountain. Baby vegetables. He likes to eat baby vegetables. Buy more vegetables. Liu Chowga's face was full of seriousness, as if she was doing the most important thing in the world. What she didn't know was that when she bent over to take the vegetables, her full breasts, plump buttocks, and sexy waist that curved like a half-moon exuded a fatal attraction. Women who buy groceries are the most beautiful. Chapter 449. Liu Chowga didn't go home, so Fong Yin didn't have anyone to talk to. He sat downstairs and drank a cup of green tea, then returned to his room to fill the bathtub with water and buried his body in the pool. As soon as he entered the state of suspended animation, the voice-activated phone installed next to the bathtub rang. Wow. Fong Yin got out of the pool, picked up the phone, and asked, "Who is it?" "Mr. Fong, there's a guest." The voice of a nanny, Aunt Liu, came over. "Do you want to invite him in?" Fong Yin looked stunned, and the big drops of water on his hair slid down his cheeks. Since when did I become half the owner of this villa? When Liu Chowga wasn't here, Did I have the right to receive or expel the guest? Fang Yin was very nervous. He seriously replayed the interaction with Lu Chaoga in his mind again and again. He drank 3 cups of tea, ate 2 meals, and said dozens of words. These shouldn't cause her to get pregnant or make her mistakenly think that he was pregnant, right? Thinking that he was innocent, Fang Yin couldn't drive away the guest who came to visit. Because if his relationship with Lu Chaoga wasn't so close, he had to respect her more and also respect her friends. If Lu Chaoga had become his woman, he could drive away all the guys he didn't like or who were too handsome. Of course, this kind of bullying behavior, which thought that he was nobler than women and loved and protected women, might be scolded as the sandpig doctrine. If there was such a day, Fang Yin didn't mind being a pig. Invite the guest in for tea, Fang Yin said. Okay, Mr. Fang. The nanny quickly agreed. After hanging up the phone, Fang Yin got up and took a cold shower. He wiped his hair and body clean, changed into the white satin clothes that he usually practiced martial arts, and went downstairs. Because he had just taken a shower, his face was ruddy, and he was in high spirits. Dressed in a white shirt and black shoes, he had an outstanding temperament. When he walked down the stairs, he gave off the feeling of a graceful and beautiful young man. Long time no see. Mr. Fang is still as elegant as ever. The guest put down the teacup in his hand and praised. The man was handsome and had a calm demeanor. There was a faint smile on his face that made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. His eyes were gentle and deep, making people feel that he was a kind person, but also a scheming person. It was rare to see a scheming and kind person receive such an evaluation. His white shirt was lined with a checkered waistcoat, and his tailored blue suit made him look both businesslike and fashionable. On his wrist was an exquisite watch with a brown crocodile leather belt. Fang Yin couldn't recognize the brand of the watch, but he really liked it. One of the 4 young masters of Flower City, Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yin had been silent for 3 years and had also disappeared for 3 years. His mentality and temperament had undergone earth-shattering changes, but his old friends were also growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Jiang Zhulu sitting in front of him might still have the name of the 4 young masters of watching, but Fang Yin could be sure that the Jiang Zhulu now was no longer the Jiang Zhulu of the past. While Fang Yin was sizing up Jiang Zhulu was also sizing up Fang Yin. The 2 men's gazes met in the air, and then they smiled knowingly. Fang Yin walked in front of Jiang Zhulu and said, "Eldest young Master Jiang, you flatter me. Our Fang family is a small family, and we don't have any temperament or elegance. On the other hand, eldest young Master Jiang is reserved and has an extraordinary temperament. One look, and I can tell that you have the demeanor of a great family." Jiang Zhulu laughed heartily and said, "I can treat other people's praise as a cool breeze, and it's over after hearing it once. But if Mr. Fang is willing to praise me, then I will accept it. This isn't something that happens often." "Of course." Fang Yin nodded. "We're mortal enemies, after all. The fact that I'm willing to praise you like this proves that you're a worthy opponent." Jiang Zhulu smiled wryly and said, "To borrow a phrase from Mr. Fang, the Jiang family is a small family. Mortal enemies are too heavy a burden for us to bear." Fang Yin sat down on the sofa across from Jiang Zhulu, and Aunt Lu brought him a cup of hot tea. Miss Lu said that Fang Yin liked green tea, so she had prepared the best white tea before he came. It cost 10 or 20,000 taels of gold. Only after Aunt Lu left did Fang Yin turn to Jiang Zhulu and ask, "You're not here to see me, are you?" "I am," Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. He took out 2 elegant but fragrant invitation cards from his pocket, got up, and handed them to Fang Yin. He said, "I wanted to invite Chaoga alone and pretend that she didn't know you were back and watching. But I think that's a little petty, as if you still can't let go of what happened back then. It's been so long. You've won against Lu Chaoga, and I have another woman. Let bygones be bygones. If you don't mind, why don't we go to the wedding?" Fang Yin took the invitation card, which said that Mr. Jiang Zhulu and Miss Jiang Shangxin had tied the knot. Jiang Zhulu was going to marry a woman from the Jiang family. The Jiang family and the Jiang family were connected through marriage after all. Could it be that the Jiang family had been very satisfied with the Jiang family's performance over the past few years, or that Jiang Shangxin was very happy with Jiang Zhuliu's performance? Congratulations, Fang Yin said in a low voice. If I have time, I'll be there to congratulate you personally. Women who bought groceries weren't necessarily the most beautiful, which meant that men were lying to you. However, beautiful women who bought groceries were simply so sexy that it made people feel hopeless. They stretched out their fair and slender hands that were smeared with various kinds of nail polish and picked out a bundle of vegetables or a few eggplants from the shelves. Then, they frowned slightly and pursed their red lips. The question of whether to choose 2 cucumbers or a box of bitter gourd made them hesitate for a long time. Lu Chaoga didn't have a desire to buy groceries. Most of her items, including her clothes and shoes, were custom-made by her assistant at home when she was slightly free from work. Once the custom-made items were completed, they would be sent over in batches. However, she felt that buying groceries was a very important matter. She had to personally go to the supermarket to pick out the freshest meat and vegetables that were most suited to his taste. Then, she would go home and cook them personally. She would complete all the processes by herself. This way, her happiness would be doubled. Lu Chaoga felt very happy now. This was because she finally had something else to do after work. It wasn't just work, it wasn't just reading books, wasn't just watching boring television dramas or pretending to have orgasms. She didn't have to deal with complicated interpersonal relationships or think about those troublesome conspiracies and plots. She could be like other women, go to the market to buy a big basket of good vegetables, and then go home to cook soup with her bare hands. The most important thing was that there was a man at home for whom she was willing to cook soup. After Lu Chaoga chose several kinds of delicious and precious fish, her assistant, and Jing had to remind her, "Boss, the cart can't fit anymore. Should we get them to bring another cart over?" Can't fit anymore? Only then did Lu Chaoga retract her thoughts from the small piece of paper in her hand. She turned to look at the shopping cart that was piled up like a mountain and said regretfully, "There are still a lot of things that I haven't bought. Boss, we'll just buy the items that you need the most. As for the other minor items, we can make a list and get the housekeeper to buy them, or I can buy them myself." And Jing looked at the mechanical watch on her wrist and said, "You've been out for 29 minutes. You're about to cross the crisis line. We have to escort you back." Lu Chaoga knew that what Jing said made sense. When had she ever had a comfortable day all these years? The Rubik's Cube was a Pandora's box that she had opened with her own hands, attracting batches and batches of demons and devils to surround and covet her. Time and time again, killing intent after killing intent, it was truly exhausting. Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Then let's go back." Although she looked cold, she was a boss who was very willing to think for her subordinates. If there was a crisis, it would be the protectors around her who would be the first to rush out and fight with their lives. They were the most dangerous targets. A man in black pushed the shopping cart over to pay the bill. Lu Chaoga and Jing walked toward the surface parking lot under the escort of 2 men in black. The underground parking lot was too dark and desolate. There were too few people and too many surveillance blind spots. It was easy for all kinds of accidents to happen. If the car was parked on the surface, with a huge flow of people in the shopping mall, it would not be easy for those peeping behind the scenes to do anything even if they wanted to. They also did not dare to brazenly expose themselves in front of the public. The engine of the custom-made bulletproof Mercedes-Benz was on. The driver in the driver's seat could start the car at any time to evacuate or drive the car anywhere to pick someone up. Sitting in the passenger seat was a middle-aged man who wore glasses and looked like a bookworm. His nickname was Bookworm. He constantly patrolled the area to prevent any suspicious people from approaching. A man in black opened the car door, and Lu Chaoga bent down to get into the car. And Jing sat beside Lu Chaoga as the car door closed. The Mercedes-Benz slowly started up as another escort car followed behind it. The car drove out of the bustling shopping mall and onto the main road, heading for the flower district where Lu Chaoga's villa was. And Jing felt an itch on her head. She reached out and grabbed a black bug. Why is there a fly here? And Jing exclaimed, Gotcha! The fly's body suddenly exploded. White light blazed as it turned into a palm-sized saucer-shaped communication device. This is a genetic bomb. Once it explodes, none of you will be left. A man's calm and powerful voice sounded from the communication device. He didn't remove his original voice and use a mechanical voice, proving that he didn't care if these people knew his true identity. Then, congratulations. You've been kidnapped. Chapter 450. The development of technology had pushed the technology of crime forward. In the past, people had to slash with knives, stab with swords, strangle with ropes, and poison in drinks. There had to be something in contact with the human body. Right now, the criminals were thousands of miles away, and it was possible for them to carry out a large-scale massacre. All Jing did was grab a tiny black fly from her hair, but the fly instantly exploded, turning into a genetic bomb that could communicate and explode. It was even more powerful than Monkey Sun's 72 transformations. Lu Chaoga had been busy with the research of the Rubik's Cube in recent years, so it was impossible for her not to know the notoriety of the genetic bomb. And Jing was originally an outstanding graduate of a famous university. After interviewing for a job at Chaoyan Technology, she was placed in an important position by Lu Chaoga and promoted to a business assistant. Over the years, she had followed Lu Chaoga and seen too many conspiracies and hunts. She also had a deep understanding of the genetic bomb. As for the driver and the bookworm in the passenger seat, they were all carefully selected security personnel by the Qin family. Their understanding of the genetic bomb was deeper than anyone present. Hearing the man on the communicator say that it was a genetic bomb, everyone was extremely shocked but did not panic. The driver continued driving calmly, but a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. The bookworm took off his glasses and wiped them with a silk handkerchief. When he put them back on, his eyes that looked casual earlier were now emitting a frightening and fierce light. There was an alarm system on his glasses. If there was a crisis in the car, he could send a message through the glasses in time. At the very least, the guard car following behind didn't know if anything had happened here for the time being. If they could receive the alarm, they could take timely action or report the kidnapping to a higher-level figure. Unfortunately, his attempt failed. The alarm could not be sent out, and the car they were in was shut down by the holographic screen. They had lost contact with the satellite in the sky. Everything was under the enemy's control. Bookworm, are you feeling very disappointed now? A man's pleasant but disgusting voice came from the communicator. The king of individual soldiers who wreaked havoc in South Africa. The legendary figure who single-handedly wiped out half of Chief Akamsi's army after returning to Huaxia and being taken in as a servant by the Qin family. Her days became more and more comfortable, and she became more and more careless. Don't you feel powerless and aggrieved that you can't do anything? Don't waste your time. The gadget in your hands is called King Kong. It has a shielding program installed in it that can block all signals and wavebands in the car. Don't try to dismantle it, because if you move, I will immediately detonate the bomb. Needless to say, the button to detonate the bomb was pressed under my thumb. As long as I use the slightest bit of force, or if I'm not careful, you'll be incinerated into thin air by that beautiful green liquid. Not only you, but also the car you're sitting in. Nothing will be left. After a pause, the man continued, Oh, I almost forgot to tell you that your every move is under my watch. Allow me to introduce myself. I am a sovereign. Don't try to resist me, because I really like killing people. Bookworm sat quietly in the front row, not saying a word, not accepting the mockery and provocation of the sovereign. He was not surprised that those people knew his past information so clearly. With the expansion of the influence of the Rubik's Cube and the increasing importance of Lu Chaoga, he was sent to replace Qining as Lu Chaoga's security captain, directly responsible for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. In these 2 years, he had defeated countless snipers. In such a long confrontation, if they wanted to understand a person, they could even find out how many times he had peed on the bed when he was a child and how old he was when he was weaned. He had such an ability. What do you want? Lu Chaoga asked aloud. The goddess. We want the goddess. We only want the goddess. The man said with a smile. Miss Lu, don't get me wrong. The goddess we were talking about is not you. Perhaps you don't know, but our organization has constructed a plan to capture the goddess. We will use any means and pay any price to get the goddess from your hands. Yes, the goddess is the Rubik's Cube. This does not mean that we deny Miss Lu's appearance. Miss Lu is a one-in-a-million beauty, a rare goddess. Unfortunately, I don't like women. No matter how beautiful a woman is standing naked in front of me, I can't have the slightest interest. We are more interested in the Rubik's Cube goddess. As long as we have her, our children and grandchildren will not have to worry about food and clothing, and can even become the master of this world. Miss Lu, I don't think you will let us down, right? No. Lu Chaoga's voice was crisp. What a woman with character. If I were a man, I think I would fall in love with you. The man's voice came from the intercom. But what are you going to do? Your life is in my hands now. As long as I use a little force, such a beautiful body will be blown to pieces. How regrettable is that? Even if I am not a man, I will feel sorry for those who are secretly fascinated by you. The Rubik's Cube goddess. This is the code name they gave you. You must like it very much, right? Lu Chaoga was not interested in continuing to talk to the Lord God, but said to Bookworm in the front passenger seat, I leave this matter to you. Everyone should do what they are best at, and now they encountered the field that Bookworm was best at. What she had to do was to trust Bookworm and wait quietly. Do as they ask, Bookworm said. He took King Kong from Njing's hands. At least he had no way to get rid of this little thing. If he could, he really wanted to press down the window and throw it out. However, he knew it was impossible. This was because the moment he pressed the window, King Kong might have already exploded. Besides, who knew if those people had any tricks up their sleeves? The enemy could take risks, but he couldn't drag Lu Chaoga to take risks with him. He knew how important Lu Chaoga was to the Qin family now, and how much the elders of the Qin family valued her. If it wasn't for the talented Miss Qin supporting them, those proud figures of the Qin family would probably be suppressed by her. It was not a pleasant thing that the person in charge of the subsidiary company was too capable. No king would use a general who was difficult to control. Fortunately, at least for now, the two sides were still in the honeymoon period. How to get rid of King Kong in his hands was really a tricky problem. Since Miss Lu doesn't want to talk to me, then, Bookworm, let's communicate directly. Do as I say, and obey every word unconditionally. The voice of the Lord God became cold and determined. Lu Chaoga's attitude completely irritated him. The first thing you have to do is to get rid of the escort car behind you in a minute or something. I don't care what reason you use, but your every move is seen by me. If they do anything suspicious, I will put the dead on your head. Don't forget, I like to kill people, and I like to kill beautiful women even more. They exist in this world. It's really annoying. The Bookworm didn't waste this precious time and motioned the driver to turn the car to the fast lane on the innermost side of the main road. Slow down the speed, and then turn left quickly when the red light is about to shine. When the guard car behind wanted to follow, a large number of cars had already rushed over from the left and right sides, blocking them in place and making them unable to move. Beautiful. The Lord God praised. The second thing is to drive into the sea view lane and go in the direction of the sea view platform. Without the Bookworm's explanation, the driver had driven into the sea view lane. The sea view lane was the main lane to enter the seaport. There was a lot of traffic. A car squeezed in the middle would soon be surrounded by a long line of cars. The front and back were impenetrable, and it was difficult to escape. The guard team lost contact, and there was no external force to rely on. The car was trapped in the middle of the traffic, and the hope of self-help was slim. Now the situation was even more critical. The sweat on the driver's forehead was getting denser, and the blood in the Bookworm's eyes was getting stronger and stronger. His eyes were looking at the surrounding environment sharply, looking for possible opportunities to break through. And Jing was just like her name. She sat beside Lu Chaoga, as usual. She didn't speak or scream. She was no different from usual, but her right hand kept waving a button under the seat, It was the alarm device of the car's security system. Even if she knew that the chance of success was very small, but what if the headquarters received their message? Lu Chaoga was very comfortable. First, she lay on the seat and listened to the light music in the car for a while. Finally, she was a little bored and simply pulled out a fashion magazine from the back of the seat to read to kill time. She had fantasized about such a result countless times. She knew that there would be such a day after all. As long as the Rubik's Cube was in her hands, those people would not give up. She could escape a hunt. She could escape 10 traps, but could she escape 100 ambushes? Whether she was there or not, the Rubik's Cube must be there. Therefore, she simply refused the Lord God's request to take away the Rubik's Cube. There was no room for discussion or negotiation in this matter. She said that she would give a huge Chaoyan empire to Feng Yan. This was her promise to him, who said that a woman could not promise a man. Chapter 451. Aren't you afraid? The Lord noticed Lu Chaoga's ease and asked doubtfully. Lu Chaoga's eyes are still on the gorgeous style of clothes in the magazine, thinking that she should order a batch of autumn clothes. Although she has enough clothes, it's best not to repeat them. Otherwise, men will be tired of looking at them. Hearing that the Lord is still asking questions, she answered perfunctorily and said, "Afraid. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" The Lord is very curious about women. The more you don't understand a woman, the more curious you are. Afraid. I don't see you afraid. Lu Chaoga finally looked up and said in a sarcastic voice, "I've prepared for the worst. Now that moment has not come. In the battlefield of feelings, there is no fairness, only who loves whom more." Lu Chaoga did not know what kind of feelings he had for Feng Yan. Was it familial love, adoration, attachment, or perhaps attachment? She has never thought about this topic, because for her, it doesn't matter. She lost her parents when she was a child and was an orphan living in the enemy's home. Her heart has long been hard, and her blood has long been cold. Later, the miraculous appearance of her aunt gave her a clear understanding of her family. Where there are relatives, there is home. Although her aunt was burned to such a horrible appearance, she is also her most precious and only relative. It is for this reason that she knows that her aunt is doing something crazy and does not object to it. She understands her aunt and understands how desperate and crazy it is to live and die. However, her aunt, who loves her the most, is also dead. If no one in the world loves you, then find someone you love. Fortunately, there is Feng Yan, the man who was betrayed by her, the man who blocked the knife for her, the man who pulled her out of the mud again and again. If there is still light in the world, it is the place where Feng Yan is. If there is warmth in the world, it is when they watch the fireworks under the same sky. Lu Chaoga's life was complicated yet simple, pitiful yet happy. The 3 years of rapid development of the Rubik's Cube were also the most dangerous years for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. Countless conspiracies, countless traps, countless fire pits, countless assassinations, countless poisons and drinks, but she had survived them all. She did not complain, and no one would listen to her. She had never thought of retreating. She had nowhere to retreat to. She had escaped too many times. She was lucky. This time, she did not avoid it. That was her fate. Sometimes, luck and fate were just a step apart. The Lord was silent for a long time. When everyone thought that he had disappeared or was busy with other things, his voice came again. He sighed and said, "You are the most amazing woman I have ever seen. I don't want to say thank you." When faced with a hostage who had kidnapped you, even if he praised you as the most beautiful woman in the world, you wouldn't have any good impression of him. Lu Chaoga's eyes had turned to the magazine again, and she had lost interest in talking to the Lord God. She just couldn't understand. How could there be such a long-winded kidnapper? Didn't he understand that talking too much leads to mistakes? The more you talk, the easier it is to expose your own information and give the opponent a chance to take advantage of it. Mr. Bookworm. Oh, perhaps it is more appropriate to call you Mr. Tiger. Now, I need you to do a very important thing. You don't mind self-dormancy, do you? The voice of the Lord was teasing. You know, your existence is a threat to us. We don't want to go to the devil's cave. You are still alive, and several young men can't get close. Thank you for your attention to me, the bookworm said coldly. He pressed the watch button on his wrist, and a thin needle popped out of the watch's steel hole. He pricked the acupuncture point on his neck with the thin needle, and his body immediately collapsed on the seat. Thank you for your cooperation, the Lord God said to the unconscious bookworm. Turn left at the first intersection ahead. There's a big truck parked on the roadside. Drive your car along the iron plate into the truck. The Lord God's words were obviously directed at the driver, because now only the driver can execute his order. Lu Chaoga did not speak, and the driver would not refute. He turned the steering wheel smoothly, and then drove the Mercedes-Benz through the iron plate into the truck compartment. Clang! The truck door closed automatically, and the compartment was as dark as night. The dashboard of the Mercedes-Benz flashed a faint green light, and the faces of several people in the car were as gloomy as ghosts. They felt that the truck began to move, driving to a distance that no one knew. Devil's Cave? What is that place? You don't hit a smiling face. Jiang Zhulu has been smiling, and his posture is very low, so that Fang Yin can't reach out and hit him in the face. Fang Yin doesn't like Jiang Zhulu, and he doesn't like his father Qiang Long Tan even more. Even quite disgusted, the father and son of the Jiang family are both hypocrites. Just because there is no evidence for something doesn't mean it didn't happen. When her aunt died, Lu Chaoga was heartbroken, and the courage to survive was to revenge. She wants to repay the pain the Jiang family gave her tenfold, 100-fold. After 3 years, Jiang Zhulu came to invite Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga to attend his wedding, pretending that nothing had happened. What kind of drama was he putting up? Hearing that Fang Yin is willing to make time to attend his wedding, Jiang Zhulu was very happy and said with a smile, Mr. Fang, your name shook watching 3 years ago, and even after 3 years, there are still all kinds of legends about you in watching. If I can invite Mr. Fang to attend my wedding, it will definitely add a lot of color to the wedding banquet. When the time comes, I will definitely toast to you a few more times. Fang Yin shook his head and said, I don't drink. I've already quit. Oh. Jiang Zhuliu's smile gradually disappeared, and he said with a regretful expression, I've heard a little about your father. He is a true hero. The dead are long gone, and the living are like this. I'm sure Uncle has another kind of fun in heaven. Don't be too sad while you're alive. Fang Yin looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, What kind of fun is there in heaven? Why don't I send you up there to take a look? Jiang Zhuliu's expression was very awkward. Do you know how to talk? How can I continue this kind of conversation? The human world is fine. Why do I have to go to heaven? If you want to go up there and accompany your father. I'm just joking. Don't mind me, Fang Yin said with a smile. We're friends. Why would I send you up there? I'll send anyone who sends my father up there. It didn't harm my father, did you? Why would I do such a thing? Jiang Zhulu said with a face full of anger. Don't harm your family. What grudge do I have with you? Why would I do such a thing to your family? I also hope that Mr. Fang can find the real culprit and avenge your father. At that time, I will naturally accompany Mr. Fang and get drunk. Thank you, Fang Yin said. I don't drink. At that time, I'm sure Mr. Fang will be willing to drink to his heart's content. Jiang Zhulu was about to leave when Qining suddenly barged in through the door. His face was ashen, and it was obvious that something big had happened. What happened? Fang Yin had a bad feeling in his heart. Qining quickly walked in front of Fang Yin and said, I just received a call from the guard team. They lost contact with Miss Lu's car. When? 3 minutes ago. Tell me in detail, Fang Yin said coldly, suppressing the anger in his heart. I lied to you. Miss Lu didn't stay at the Research Institute for a meeting, but went to the mall with her assistant to buy groceries. Qining hurriedly explained and reported the whole process of Lu Chaoga's disappearance to Fang Yin in detail. Miss Lu finished her shopping, and the convoy began to return. While waiting for the traffic light at the intersection of Huacheng, the car that Miss Lu was in suddenly turned left, and the guard team behind was blocked by other cars. Unable to follow closely after this sudden incident, the guard team immediately contacted the car that Miss Lu was in. However, Miss Lu's phone couldn't be connected, and assistant and's phone couldn't be connected either. There were 7 other communication tools between the 2 cars, including satellite communication equipment and wave transmission equipment. All communication methods were blocked. While Qining was reporting the situation, Fang Yin had already opened the map on his phone and started to search for the area where Lu Chaoga went missing. His eyes were glued to the map, as if he wanted to drag Lu Chaoga out of the map. They suspect that Miss Lu was kidnapped and are currently searching the area where the car went missing, Qining said. The guard team reported back the situation and awaited further instructions. Damn it! Fang Yin grabbed the teacup in front of him and threw it at the opposite side. Jiang Zhilu, who was holding the teacup and listening to the conversation between Fang Yin and Qining, couldn't dodge in time, and his forehead was hit by the flying teacup. Smack! The teacup smashed onto Jiang Zhulio's forehead, causing tea to splatter everywhere. A few tea leaves stuck to his face in an unsightly manner. The refined and elegant Huaqing's 4 young masters looked miserable and battered at this moment. Even a clay Buddha had some vitality, and Jiang Zhulio's ability to maintain his vitality was extremely good. However, when faced with the humiliation of having tea splattered on his face, it was hard for him to bear. Jiang Zhulu was furious. He jumped up from the sofa, wiped the tea off his face, and shouted at Fang Yin, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoga's disappearance. But what does this have to do with me? Why do you have to throw a teacup at someone?" After flying into a rage, Fang Yin calmed down a little. He looked at Jiang Zhulu guiltily and said, "I'm sorry, I was too angry." Chapter 452. You're angry? Shouldn't I be? Can I hit someone just because I'm angry? Can I hit you just because I'm angry? Jiang Zhilu didn't believe Fang Yin's bullshit about hitting someone because he couldn't control his emotions. This guy didn't play by the rules, and he had been beaten up by him several times 3 years ago. Every little move he made had a deep meaning behind it, and he didn't realize it until the truth was revealed. Now, he was hitting him with a glass. What was he trying to do with Lu Chaoga's disappearance? Jiang Zhulio's hair stood on end, and a chill ran down his spine. His extreme wariness of Fang Yin made his anger disappear, and he calmed down as well. Fang Yin sat back down on the sofa and looked at Jiang Zhulu like a lone vulture. "I went back to Huaqing yesterday, and you came to give us an invitation today, and then Chaoga was kidnapped. Jiang Zhulu, how can I believe that you have nothing to do with this?" "It's a coincidence. It's all a coincidence," Jiang Zhulu said firmly. Jiang Zhulu said firmly. He didn't want to have anything to do with the kidnappers. "I feel bad that something like this happened in Chaoga. Chaoga is your lover, and she's also my family. I can promise you that I have nothing to do with this. If I had decided to kidnap Lu Chaoga today, would I have come to give you an invitation and let you humiliate me like this? That's hard to say." Fang Yin stared at Jiang Zhulu as if there was a flower on his face. "You and your father conspired to kill Chaoga's parents, but didn't you pretend to adopt her for so many years?" "Fang Yin, don't slander me. You need evidence. What evidence do you have to prove that we killed Lu Chaoga's parents? What evidence do you have to prove that I was the mastermind behind Lu Chaoga's kidnapping? If you keep trying to frame me, I don't mind suing you for slander. You won't get a lawyer," Fang Yin said calmly, "because you know very well in your heart that if you sue me because of this matter, it will only cause a big uproar. Moreover, it will confirm the fact that you are the murderers of Lu Chaoga's parents. You will only desperately want to disassociate yourself from this matter." Jiang Zhulu glared fiercely at Fang Yin and said, "So, you saw that it was difficult for us to defend ourselves, so you wanted to pour this basin of dirty water on us, father and son? I won't wrongly accuse a good person," Fang Yin said, "but I won't let any bad person go either. If you're the bad guy, we can only fight to the death." "It seems like we can never be friends," Jiang Zhulu said as he looked at Fang Yin. "I don't befriend people with evil intentions." "I hope you're right," Jiang Zhulu sneered. He walked in front of Fang Yin, picked up the 2 invitations on the coffee table, and turned to walk towards the door. Qin Ying's figure flashed and blocked in front of Jiang Zhulu. This was Lu Chaoga's house. When Lu Chaoga wasn't here, Fang Yin was the owner of this house. The owner didn't say anything, so how could he be allowed to leave as he pleased? Moreover, Fang Yin said that the kidnapping incident was related to Jiang Zhulu. Was it related or not? This matter had to be cleared up before he could leave. Jiang Zhulu looked at Fang Yin and sneered, saying, "What? You want to keep me here? If the owner wants to keep me here, then I'll really be an unwelcome guest and not leave." Fang Yin looked at Qining and said, "Tomorrow is someone else's big day. How can we detain the groom? Let him go. We still have to go to his wedding tomorrow." Qining was full of doubts, but still listened to the order and moved to the side. "Although I know you'll definitely refuse, I still have to say this. I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoga's disappearance. If there's a need, you can give me a call. My Jiang family also has some connections, so we'll definitely do our best to search for Lu Chaoga's whereabouts." Jiang Zhulio's voice was loud and clear as he said, "Lu Chaoga has misunderstood my Jiang family, but my Jiang family will always treat her as a family member. Why should I refuse?" Fang Yin asked, "Go on, do your best to find her. When you find Lu Chaoga, I'll treat you to a drink." Jiang Zhulu took a deep look at Fang Yin and strode out of the villa. At the entrance of the villa's courtyard, a champagne-colored Bentley was parked. An old man in a well-ironed suit stood beside the car. When he saw Jiang Zhulu coming, he immediately opened the door of the KAI in a gentlemanly manner. Jiang Zhulu got into the back seat of the car, and the old man gently closed the door. After the old man sat down in the front passenger seat, the Bentley slowly drove out of the neighborhood. "Young master, you've been wronged," the old man said softly as he handed over a white and soft silk handkerchief. When Jiang Zhulu went in, he had an extraordinary bearing, but when he came out, he was extremely angry. It was obvious that the conversation inside wasn't very friendly. Jiang Zhulu took the silk handkerchief and wiped the water stains on his face and clothes. He said with a light smile, "Fang Yin is a mad dog. He bites anyone he sees, and he changes his attitude faster than flipping a page. He's just like that, and I've known him for a long time. He bears a grudge against you, young master," the old man said. "Hatred is like a seed. The longer it lasts, the higher it grows. In the end, it will become a towering tree." He never thought of becoming friends with young master, so his words and actions are unrestrained. This kind of person is the most taboo, because no one knows when he will turn hostile. And when he turns hostile, he won't show any mercy. "Let him be," Jiang Zhulu said. "However, there's a piece of news that we should pay attention to. Lu Chaoga has disappeared. It's very likely that she's been kidnapped." "Young master, do you have a suspect?" No country can do without three types of people. Those with guns, those with pens, and there's also an idiot. Jiang Zhulu glanced at the Lu family's small building that was gradually getting further away and said, "I really want to know which idiot is helping the people get rid of a pest." "You'll find out eventually," the old man comforted him. "When the time comes, young master will treat him to a drink." Longtu Clubhouse. This was a luxurious business clubhouse that Longtu Group had invested nearly $1 billion to build. It was also named after Longtu Group and was one of the most private and high-end gathering places in Huaqing. Longtu Group was named after the names of its two founders, Qiang Long Tan and Lu Mingtu. Lu Mingtu died young, and the two in Longtu Group's name had been missing. However, Qiang Long Tan was extremely capable and turned the tide. He single-handedly propped up the company and led Longtu Group to carve out a big place in the new energy field. Of course, their good days ended 2 years ago. That was because another energy company had risen rapidly and lit up the entire sky like a comet. Chaoyan Technology, the energy technology company with the logo of two small red flames burning above and below, appeared out of nowhere. As soon as they appeared, they charged forward with an unstoppable, invincible stance, sweeping away everything in their way. They were not only a nightmare for Longtu Group, but also a nightmare for energy companies in Huaxia and even the entire world. Under the suppression of Chaoyan Technology, although Longtu Group was not as powerful as it used to be, it still used Qiang Long Tan's magical operating methods and a large amount of financial support to wantonly merge with Show Group, firmly occupying the second place in the energy field in Huaqing. The first and second place were natural enemies. The two companies fought fiercely against each other repeatedly. The chairman of Longtu Group, Kang Long Tan, had publicly announced through the media that if possible, he was very willing to expand the scope of cooperation with Chaoyan Technology. However, the strong female leader of Chaoyan Technology, Lu Chaoga, who was deified by countless media outlets, sharply rejected him. We can talk about acquisition, but not cooperation. Jiang Zhulu went to send invitations to Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan, inviting them to attend his wedding. This was also a show of goodwill. Lu Chaoga was pressing hard, and the Jiang family's days were not going to be easy. That woman was full of murderous intent. She was determined to take down Longtu Group. Unfortunately, it was unknown whether Lu Chaoga's luck was too bad or whether Jiang Zhulu did not look at the almanac when he left the house. He and Fang Yan were chatting happily when news of Lu Chaoga's kidnapping came. This way, the Jiang father and son's goodwill intentions were thrown into a frozen lake. Sending invitations on the day Lu Chaoga was kidnapped, who would believe that you had nothing to do with this matter? Today, Longtu Club was not open to the outside world because the son of Longtu Group's big boss, Jiang Zhulu, was going to hold his wedding here. The seats were full, and luxury cars were everywhere. As one of the 4 oldest families in Huaqing, they naturally had a deep foundation and a huge network of connections. High-ranking political officials, wealthy tycoons, celebrities all shone brightly, illuminating the night sky of Huaqing. Longtu Club was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and the largest hall, Phoenix Coming Morning Hall, was a sea of fresh flowers. Hundreds of thousands of fresh flowers formed a beautiful rural landscape. The closer they were to the front of the stage, the higher their status and seniority. Some of the young people who came to support were arranged slightly further back. For the wedding of Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, other than Mei Yingxue, who never appeared in public, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu came to support. They sat together with a few influential young masters in the circle, chatting and laughing, so they did not feel bored. Lan Shanggu looked rough and straightforward, but it was easy for him to get along with those young masters. Ever since Lu Shu's face was disfigured, he had become a monster in Huaqing. He spoke in a strange way, and his methods were cruel and ruthless. He gave off a gloomy aura that kept people away. Lan Shanggu chatted and laughed with everyone for a while. Then, he tilted his body slightly and approached Lu Shu, who was drinking his tea in silence. He said, if the Jiang family pushed Jiang Shangxin out as bait 3 years ago, then has Jiang Zhulu satisfied the Jiang family, or Jiang Shangxin? How did this happen? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.